Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Iron Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Scar Masking Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. It starts small. Bakugo rejects Katashi's proposal to hang out, not for the first time. But this time he leaves the chat after the usual "don't bother me" extras. Katashi's resentment has been growing for a while now. What bothers him is not that Bakugo doesn't value them, and it's clear as day that he doesn't even know their names, but that Bakugo doesn't even see them. In his eyes, they are nothing more than pesky insects, a mild nuisance at best. He isn't aware of the kind of power they have. Katashi wasn't aware of it for a long time either. But he's grown up, he's gotten wiser, and their recent seminar on bullying awoke an idea. Bakugo is strong, but he isn't untouchable. Even small insects can cause a deadly allergic reaction if they attack the right immune system. Nagisa Katashi is sick of being dismissed. And he knows the others have to be too. "Hey guys," he types into their group chat, the one buzzing with indignant messages at Bakugo's recent behavior. It's just the four of them now. "I have an idea." Mina sees it first. She's well informed about social movements, usually. Likes to join in on some of them herself. But she's been busy lately, just like everyone else. Between training, exams and friends, what remaining free time she has is spent sleeping. And she wants to avoid a repeat of coming across her own face online. Still, heroics training ended early today, and unlike the rest of her class full of nerds, she isn't keen to spend her free afternoon studying. She's mindlessly watching shorts in her dorm room when a girl's face pops up. It doesn't seem ominous at first. She makes a scared face at some loud, explosive noise in the background that's followed by laughter. Then she shakes her head, and the noise is replaced with loud, upbeat music Mina'd love to dance to. Her body moves along to it without her conscious control, but she doesn't stand up, and she doesn't stop paying attention to her phone screen when the captions appear. First it says, "Say no to bullying," and then, #justice for Izuku. Mina frowns. She's usually aware of these things, especially things with this kind of message, considering that she's dealt with her fair share of bullies before UA. She looks up the tag and scrolls through the several short videos that have been posted over the last couple of days. Most of them have similar thumbnails. A shocked, angry face accompanied by a caption that says something along the lines of "child abuse is not okay," or "stop bullying." All she can conclude from these images is that this Izuku is a child who is or was bullied so badly that it caused an uproar online. For that to happen, in Mina's professional opinion, there has to be source material talking about the bullying. She looks the tag up on HeroOgle and finds a HeroTube video titled, "Why Bakugo Katsuki Shouldn't Be a Hero." She stops in her practiced movements, fingers hovering above the screen. She reads it again. And again. The words don't change. Something clenches in her gut. It isn't the first time she comes across criticism or even hate directed at her or her classmates. There's a reason why she reduced her time spent on social media, but none of them had such a high number of views and likes. And even more importantly, none of them were one of the first search result for a tag against bullying. This has to be a misunderstanding. She taps on the video. By the end of it her hands are shaking so much that she drops the phone. She doesn't care though. Mina leaves the room quickly, with a singular destination in mind. Midoriya Izuku is studying outside and doesn't hear the shouting match that follows. He doesn't see Aizawa rush in and break up the fight that such aggressive, emotional arguments are bound to snowball into. He's busy listening to Ida's lecture on why knowledge on cellular functions is essential to heroics. He's far away, closer to the classrooms than the dorm building, smiling, surrounded by his friends on a surprisingly warm October afternoon. Izuku has been getting looks lately. He's no stranger to being stared at. Back in middle school, kids pointed or sneered at him in waves. Those stares usually had something to do with his dreams of becoming a hero. He could never know for sure what triggered those waves in particular, though, because he was too far away to hear the accompanying whispers most of the time, but he could read them well enough to be glad that he was. At UA, students seem to be above sneering or pointing, but some Gen Ed and Class B, well, Monoma, students like to glare at them or whisper about them when they pass by. But that's usually about Class A as a whole, which makes it easier to deal with for everyone. Point is, Izuku knows how to read stares. And these are a different brand than usual. Are you okay, Deku? Uraraka interrupts his musings. She's walking next to him with the usual happy smile on her face. You spaced out for a second there. Yeah, I'm fine. Their walk to class has been quiet this morning, all of them tired from staying up late watching movies yesterday. It was agreed upon that the one who got the most questions right on Ida's biology quiz would get to choose the movie. Ida was too proud of them to complain when Uraraka, Tsuyu, and Izuku all got a 100 on it. He didn't think Uraraka would notice him getting lost in thought when they all look dead on their feet. It never ceases to amaze him how observant his friends are. They pass a pair of first years from one of the general education classes. They slow down when they get close enough to see him and Uraraka behind the taller Ida and Todoroki. Their eyes widen for a moment, and one of them leans in close to the other to whisper something in her friend's ear. The taller girl nods seriously at whatever she said. They keep walking, and Izuku would have to crane his neck and stare at them openly if he wanted to find out what else they do. If you can guess though, they fall under the same category of starers he's encountered over the last couple of days. And the number seems to be growing by the day. Either he's going crazy or… Uraraka? He asks, unsure where he's going with this. He'll decide when he sees her reaction. Yeah. She turns her head to look at him again. Her face is open and curious, as usual. It still catches him off guard. Come to think of it, they're walking pretty close to each other. His face feels warm all of the sudden. He looks away just in time to see a boy shoot him a glance before entering his second-year classroom. He takes a breath. Don't you think people are being a bit weird? Weird? She frowns. In what way? He doesn't know how to say it because telling her that everyone's staring at him sounds crazy. He generalizes, in the looking at you weird way? She takes a moment to think before shaking her head. No, I haven't realized anything like that. Why? It's nothing. He waves his arms in denial. I just had a feeling. It's not even a lie. Nothing happened to prove the suspicion that he's at the center of some weird rumor only some people across all years and classes are aware of. His brows furrow in thought, hand on his chin. It does sound unlikely spelled out like that. And also self-centered. He almost freezes in his steps at a sudden realization. Did he become like Kaken? Taking everything as a personal insult? If he doesn't stop soon, he'll start telling people to die when they accidentally meet his eyes. Deku! He stops in his tracks. He looks up from the ground to find Uraraka standing right in front of him. She has a look of amusement on her face. He stares at her dumbly for a moment, until he realizes that there are 4 people missing from behind her. Where's everyone else? He asks, looking around. She bursts out laughing, and Izuku is barely able to stop himself from panicking at the fact that she's obviously laughing at him. Don't be a Kaken, he tells himself. What's so funny? He asks, forcing himself to chuckle along. You. His heart sinks despite the smile on her face. You're not really here when you're sleep-deprived, are you? Here. He takes a look at their surroundings again. The left wall is covered in Yep posters. But they don't have school-sponsored exchange programs until second year. This is the wrong hallway. He turns to Uraraka, face flushed. I'm so sorry, Uraraka. I wasn't paying attention and was he muttering out loud? I was just thinking about people being weird and then about them maybe not being weird but me being weird. That sounded a lot more eloquent in his mind. Uraraka keeps looking at him with raised eyebrows, as if this was normal. Oh God, is this his normal? We should get to class and catch up to the others. He hopes that saying something reasonable at the end will make her forget the rest of what he said. Judging by the amused quirk of her lips as he leads the way to the classroom, and he doesn't do that to prove that he knows the way, not at all, it didn't work. This is the first time the stairs follow him into the classroom. Stairs is the wrong word, actually. Not stairs would be more accurate. There seems to be a mutual agreement not to look at him by almost half the class. They don't even whisper among themselves. They take one look at him, stop talking and pretend to be invested in their closed exercise books, almost like he did something wrong. Something he doesn't even know about. What's more worrying, though, is that they look like they've spent at least 4 nights in a row watching Quiz Award movies, and Izuku knows for a fact that they didn't look anything like this yesterday. He would ask if they're okay, but he doesn't think they'd want that. He would leave the room if it wasn't 5 minutes to class. Did something happen? Uraraka must have noticed the tension too. I don't know, he says, gripping the straps of his backpack. Something's wrong. Where have you been? Ida walks up to them, chopping arms and all. Sleep deprivation is no excuse for tardiness. As a matter of fact, breaking one rule should make you more determined to follow the others. We're not even the last ones, Ida. Uraraka says, rolling her eyes fondly. She doesn't stop looking worried, though. You should take your seats nonetheless. Don't forget you need to take your seat too, Ida. Uraraka says sweetly, the picture of innocence despite her teasing. She likes doing that. They should both be used to it by now, but Ida still flushes and takes his seat dutifully. The knot stares make Izuku feel too uncomfortable to do anything but chuckle quietly. The atmosphere only seems more off sitting down. It's the ones who usually talk the most that look the most shaken. They wave questions off, denying anything's wrong when the people around them express their worry. If it wasn't clear before that that was a lie, Kirishima's disheveled form entering the room, moments before Aizawa, makes that fact undeniable. Izuku looks at Aizawa, then at the empty seat in front of him, then down at his watch. Kaken's late. Kaken's never late. His heart sinks. Aizawa looks grim. He levels one of those serious looks at them, reserved for when things are really bad. Izuku isn't the only one who recognizes it. It's the one their teacher wore when he jumped into a sea of villains at the USJ to protect them. Some of his classmates straighten up, ready for battle, one way or another. You will put your phones in here. Aizawa holds up a plastic box demonstratively. He removes the lid and throws it onto the teacher's desk up front. His movements project carelessness and indifference, but his stance doesn't. He's as tense as the silence in the room. If you own 2 for some reason, both of them will have to go unless you want to risk expulsion. At Aizawa's expectant look, the class complies. Everyone but the not starers. Is this part of a training exercise? Mineta asks worriedly, more to himself than Aizawa. Everyone's surprised when he gets an answer. No, Aizawa's cold voice sends a chill down Izuku's spine. There will be no training exercise today. Why not? Uraraka asks, raising her hand hesitantly. There's an investigation into UA's teaching methods. As a result, any activities requiring quirk use or combat are prohibited. He says casually, as if talking about a regular homework assignment. Oh, and if you do those things outside of class, you're expelled. He adds as an afterthought, leaning back against the teacher's desk and closing his eyes. Closed eyes mean he's done talking. He's threatening expulsion a lot, which means he's either in good mood or a particularly bad one. Izuku fears it's the latter. Even if Izuku liked asking questions in class, he wouldn't know where to start. He knows so little that there would be no substance to them. Aizawa gave them advanced information on a topic they've never heard of before and expects them to figure it out for themselves. It wouldn't be the first time, but there seems to be more at stake here than just a bad grade. Izuku's classmates agree. Most of them at least. The not starers barely reacted to any of what he said. Sensei? Ida asks. Aizawa's hum is an invitation to speak. Ida stands up, back straight. What is the reason for the investigation? Aizawa sighs and opens his eyes again. That's confidential. Wait, will they go through our phones? Kaminari says, a look of horror on his face. A wave of concerned whispers engulfs the room. Shut up, Kaminari. Ashido says, sounding so uncharacteristically cold and angry that the class is shocked into silence. There are more important things to worry about than your pawn addiction. Kaminari goes beet red. That's not even. He sputters, shooting a fearful glance Aizawa's way. He simply raises an eyebrow, not looking like he cares much about that particular piece of information. And, what do you even mean? Something's up, but you're not telling us anything. Maybe because it's none of your business. She yells, finally turning to look at Kaminari. It's the first time Izuku gets a good look at her face. She doesn't look angry like her voice would suggest. She has prominent dark pink bags around her teary eyes. Izuku feels a pang in his chest at seeing his cheerful classmate look this exhausted. Whatever happened, Izuku hopes it can be fixed. When her eyes accidentally meet Izuku's, she hurries to look down at her desk again. His heart sinks further. Did he do something wrong? Kaminari hesitates, looking concerned instead of agitated now, but Aizawa speaks up before he can say anything else. That's enough. It's confidential, meaning neither I nor your classmates can divulge anything. So don't pester them. We won't be going through your phones unless there's cause for suspicion of wrongdoing. Collecting them is a precaution, nothing more. You're not allowed to go online. Don't ask why. Wi-Fi's down. If you need a connection to do school-related work, you can make use of the monitored computers in the library. Izuku wonders how 28 computers will be enough for 660 students, most of whom prefer to use modern media over books to do research. Aizawa takes a deep breath, and Izuku has the distinct impression he's praying for patience. You're bound to ask, so I'm going to tell you now. I suspended Bakugo, and it's likely that he won't be coming back. All movement in the room stills, or maybe it's just Izuku who stops paying attention to it. He's not sure if he heard that right. I deemed him unfit of becoming a hero. Silence. Kaken? Izuku thinks dazedly, pinching his wrist. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. He's not sure if the silence is too loud or too quiet, but his heart is beating so loudly he can barely hear Aizawa's next words. That's all you need to know. All they need to know. Izuku wants to scream, but he's pretty sure he'd sound hysterical if he could get anything out beside incoherent stuttering. He clenches his fists to stop their shaking. Aizawa wouldn't answer anyway. And it isn't fair. That's how life is sometimes. But it always seemed kind to Kaken. Why did it stop now when it matters the most? Happened? Yaoyorozu finishes asking. Izuku draws his gaze away from his red sneakers to look at her. She's pale, and the rest of the class doesn't look any better. Ironically, the ones who looked shaken before are the ones who look the least disconcerted by this particular piece of information. They must have known about this too. There has to be something they can do. Like I said, I can't tell you. Aizawa says, sounding annoyed. And maybe it's not just at being bothered with questions, maybe he's frustrated about being unable to help calm the atmosphere. But maybe he shouldn't have expelled Kaken then. If you ask any further questions, you're next. Izuku would understand if Kaken did something horrible like murder or grievous bodily harm. He's an a-hole, but Izuku can't imagine Kaken jeopardizing his career like that. Kaken has so much potential. Aizawa said so too, right? How did he change his mind so drastically? And more importantly, is there a way to change it back? His classmates are shocked, perhaps too shocked to argue further, and Aizawa teaches the lesson as if nothing happened. At the end of class, Aizawa tells him to come to the teacher's lounge during lunch break. He says they have an assignment to discuss, but Izuku can't recall handing in anything that requires discussion. That's when he remembers the stairs and the not stairs and Ishido and Kirishima and everyone else that couldn't meet his eyes. Uraraka meets his eyes questioningly. Izuku shrugs with a small smile that he hopes is reassuring. He doesn't pay much attention to the rest of his classes. He tries to, really, but there are too many things to worry about. He's not sure if he's just being paranoid at this point, but he thinks he catches ectoplasm look at him with something akin to grief. And Present Mike sends him looks of pity when he thinks Izuku isn't looking. They act like he's on his deathbed. And maybe he is. Kaken was suspended. It could be his turn now. Aizawa almost expelled him on the first day of class. If he had a change of heart, Izuku could be next. But what if he deserves it? Kaken is gone, and Izuku has something to do with it, if the class atmosphere is anything to go by. What if he did something that got them both expelled? It wouldn't be the first time he got himself into trouble unintentionally, but dragging people down with him is new. If that's the case, and he hopes it isn't, he'll tell Aizawa that it wasn't Kaken's fault. He nods to himself, jaw set in determination, as he starts his walk to the teacher's lounge. For Shota, it starts with a bang. A gas explosion caused by a flame that spreads quickly despite its small size. The gas leak has been there for a while, but no one notices its presence until it's too late. On a regular Wednesday, Nezu calls a staff meeting. A year ago, that wouldn't have been worrying, but nowadays, staff meetings are usually about legitimate threats to his students. The police have a warrant for investigating our school. Nezu says once they've all taken their seats. The moment of silence that follows is quickly broken by an explosion of noise around the table, as if it only existed in the first place to accentuate the racket that was doomed to come. Shota remains quiet. Hisashi does enough yelling for both of them. It happened, the worst-case scenario, the worst outcome of all the negative media attention they've been getting. Something was found that gave the police enough evidence for an official investigation, something that Nezu can't make disappear. Starting Monday, students and teachers alike will go through a series of interrogations. What is the reason for this? Yagi asks, a solemn look on his face. It's rare to see him without it in his smaller form, his only form now, he reminds himself, but this one looks even more serious than it usually does. He's ready to fight for the school, regardless of what's about to be revealed. Just like Shota. I don't know, Nezu chirps in that same old happy tone. This is not the first time it comes off as aggressive, but it's a testament to the severity of the situation. All I've been told is that due to suspected instances of severe bullying, an investigation is necessary. Bullying? Vlad repeats in shock. Then, after a moment of silence, he adds defensively, I wouldn't call it a big issue here. I always dealt with it adequately. Some teachers voice their agreement. Nezu ignores this entirely. One of our students is being charged with aggravated Quirk assault. I have some authority over whether we hand him over now or in a few days. He isn't to leave school grounds. Which student? Shota asks, hand-fisted in his capture scarf. As soon as Nezu gives him a pitying look, Shota knows it's someone from his hell class. Bakugo Katsuki. And that's how it all starts. Nezu doesn't give them more information, not even Shota, who's more or less responsible for Bakugo. Whether Nezu truly doesn't know anything or just won't share is anyone's guess. At the end of the meeting, Shota is tasked with bringing Bakugo to Nezu's office. A simple task, normally, but nothing's ever simple with this group of kids. Full of potential and consequently, idiocy. He hears thuds accompanied by indecipherable loud voices as soon as he's inside the dorm building. They're coming from upstairs. And they aren't the normal, we're jumping around to loud music, thuds either. Some are louder than others, and some of them seem to be strategically placed. Did the kids decide to have a fight in their bedrooms? He hopes they are at least smart enough not to use their quirks. Shota should have given up hope a long time ago. He erases their quirks, quickly wrapping all three of them in capture tape, even though it looked like Kirishima was merely trying to act as a shield between his friends. There are scorch marks and small, decaying holes on the surrounding walls of the hallway. Behind them, there's an audience. Shota doesn't blink, not even when they're restrained enough not to be able to use their quirks anymore. He's angry and he wants them to know. If you don't give me a good explanation of what's going on right now, everyone in this hallway is expelled. He isn't the only one burning with anger, apparently. Ashido is fighting the hold of his scarf, glaring daggers at Bakugo, who's doing the same. Shota tightens the material. Kirishima speaks up from his spot in the middle. I don't actually know what happened. I went to get some water, and when I got back, they were attacking each other. The kids in the back, Siro, Sato, Shoji, Ojiro, and Tokoyan, nod. He sighs. Well, if nothing. It isn't nothing. Ashido says through gritted teeth, looking up at him for the first time. He hurt me, someone badly, and he doesn't even feel guilty. Hurt someone, severe bullying, aggravated assault. The pieces are coming together, and he doesn't like what all of this is leading up to. It happened ages ago, raccoon eyes. Bakugo says equally furious. And I barely did anything. Barely. Ashido screams, louder than Shota's ever heard her. And that's saying something considering her regular squeals of joy over one thing or the other. Those are third-degree burns. Shota's blood runs cold. Ashido, he says, tone of voice serious. Is someone injured? No, Shota releases a breath he didn't realize he was holding. But he was. Really badly, and maybe he is right now. Ashido says, almost hysterical at this point, half tearful, half raging. Kirishima tries to placate her, but that only tears a sob from her. He was so cruel, sensei. He was bleeding so much and he didn't stop. She's crying now. The rest of the kids are trying to comfort her. Even the audience has come closer, despite Shota's intimidating presence, trying to soothe her with words or pats on the back and shoulders. It's awkward, but she thanks them tearfully, wiping at her eyes with her hands, free now that Shota's loosened his capture scarf. He isn't heartless. Ashido seems very affected by what she saw. And since she said no one is injured, the police has to have some form of evidence for the actions they are taking. Ashido, is there a video? Her flinch is answer enough, but she nods nonetheless. Online? On HeroTube. What video? Shiro asks, confused. Of Bakugo. She spits the name like acid. Torturing people. Shota didn't think this would be how the fire spreads. Ashido likes gossip and jokes, but when it comes to serious matters, she isn't likely to exaggerate. What? Several kids say at once. Everyone, go to your rooms. They hesitate, but a shooing gesture sets them in motion, however languid it may be. They leave as a group, whispering amongst themselves. Shiro has his phone in his hand already. What a mess. You too, Kirishima. He tells the boy, who hasn't moved despite being released from his restraints. But go with the others, they seem to have it all figured out. Kirishima sighs, placing a hesitant hand on Bakugo's shoulder. Good luck, Bakugo. I don't need luck, shitty hair. He mutters. Kirishima gives him a strained smile and runs after the others. Now, you two can come with me. Achiko lets the smile drop off her face as soon as Deku leaves to talk to Aizawa. Achiko knows her grades aren't the best, especially in her friend group. Seriously, why are 4 of her closest friends among the top 6 students in the class? But she isn't stupid. There isn't an assignment Deku would screw up bad enough to require an after-class discussion, and Aizawa doesn't have private conversations about a job well done. What do you think they're talking about? She asks Todoroki, who's walking next to her. Who? Deku and Aizawa-sensei. The assignment. He says in his usual deadpan voice. She stares at him, wondering if he's for real, but Todoroki usually is. Despite spending a lot of time together, Achiko hasn't spoken to him much. She doesn't think Todoroki's a guy of many words, though, so she doesn't take it personally. But, well, the things he says are honest, usually. They pass a group of girls whispering among themselves. Every person they pass is more agitated than usual due to the investigation. Ochako leans in close to draw Todoroki's attention. Do you think Deku would hand in an assignment that needs to be talked about? Without freaking out about it? Isn't it suspicious that Aizawa wants to talk to him, now, when Yue's being investigated? Todoroki's eyes widen imperceptibly. Do you think this has something to do with him? Achiko sighs. I really don't know. But Deku said something about people being weird around him. I thought it was a Deku thing, but I'm not so sure now. Midoriya worries about many things that don't need to be worried about. He says, and, well, she can't argue with that. And he's having private conversations with All Might all the time. That's a good point too, but the pit in her stomach doesn't go away. It only grows larger when she sees Mina and Kirishima in the cafeteria pick listlessly at their no doubt delicious lunches. She sits down opposite Mina. Her friend looks up and gives her a smile that doesn't fool anyone. Uraraka, Ida says from behind her. Don't you want to eat anything? I'll get something later, thanks. She waves at him to go on without her. Once he's gone, she turns back to Mina. Are you okay? She asks softly. Yeah, she says with a sniffle that contradicts her answer. Achiko gives her a look. Mina lets out a small laugh. It's her first one today when she usually never stops. She cheers everyone up all the time, spreading her joy and enthusiasm. Achiko wants to do the same for her, today, when she's the one who needs it. It isn't until she's gotten her own lunch and Mina almost looks comfortable that she mentions Deku. It's not even to ask about what she knows, She simply mentions that Deku and Ida have already written their papers for mixed class, which aren't due Friday 2 weeks from now. She was hoping to exchange eye rolls at the nerds as usual, but instead, Ashido's hands still. Then they start to shake a few moments later, and she drops her chopsticks with a clang. Some of the soup she just started to eat spills over. Are you okay? Achiko asks, concerned. You shouldn't call him that. What? You shouldn't call him that. Where is this coming from? I told you already, he said it was. It's an insult. She says the word insult as if it was the worst thing imaginable. Mina, she places a hand on her arm across the table. You can talk to me, you know? Even if it's about Deku. Especially if it's about Deku. I can't. Why not? Achiko presses. If she talked to her, she might be able to help both her and Deku. She sighs and busies her shaking hands with picking up her chopsticks. I don't think it's fair of me to tell you. Ask Midoriya about it. So, Deku does have something to do with this. Fairha. A drawling voice says from right behind her. Ochako jumps. She turns around to see Monoma standing there, the usual smug smile firmly in place. Who is Class A to decide what's fair? She resists the urge to bury her face in the bowl of miso soup in front of her. What do you want? She snaps. She's really not in the mood to deal with Monoma right now. That's not nice. I want to help you. I doubt that. Siro says from his seat next to Kirishima, clearly unhappy about Monoma's appearance. What a shame when I have exactly what you need. Monoma spreads his arms wide, almost knocking a poor student's lunch out of their hands. She scowls and looks like she wants to yell at the manic blonde but decides to get her food, herself and her sanity out of Monoma's aggressively waving hands reach as he keeps spouting nonsense. Achiko gives her a sympathetic smile, although she knows the girl is too distracted cursing Monoma under her breath to see it. Achiko wishes she could escape him too. How the tables have turned. Class A is at the center of a nationwide controversy when 2 weeks ago they were so popular. Shut up, Kirishima says, fists clenched on the table. Is this about your buddy? Monoma taunts, raising his voice so their entire class and then some at the surrounding tables could hear. They still in their chatter and movements. Blasty finally got what he deserved and none of you are happy about it. What did he do? Achiko asks, trying to sound nonchalant when in reality she's eager to finally find out what the hell is going on. And Monoma has always liked to hear himself talk. I'll show anyone who asks nicely. What sick game is he playing? Ochako takes a deep breath. Please. It absolutely sounds like a curse. Class A at the mercy of Class B. Not so much better now, are you? At this point, she is ready to punch him, but Kendo does it before she has the chance to. She turns to the class as a whole apologetically. I'm sorry about him. He's stressed. Not more stressed than normal. Achiko has never seen him act any other way. Kendo, Monoma says, struggling in her large, strong grip. We talked about this. You agreed. If they want to know, they deserve to know. Oh, she lets Monoma go, face falling. This is about that. About what? Ida asks, clearly just as frustrated about the fact that even people from other classes know more about a situation concerning at least one of their classmates, possibly two. And both Ida and Achiko are good friends with one of them. They have more of a right to know than anyone in Class B. Instead of raising her voice like Monoma, Kendo lowers hers when she speaks next. There are videos of Bakugo hurting Midoriya online. There's a sinking feeling in her stomach as Kendo goes on. It's quite brutal. She says quietly, as if she was talking about someone's murder. No one's quite ready to speak up after that jarring piece of information. Achiko's sure the entire class heard it, though, the few tables they're sitting at seem to be in a trance. The rest of the cafeteria is buzzing with movement and sound, but time stopped for them the moment the words, Bakugo hurting Midoriya, left Kendo's lips. Achiko forces herself to stand up. It's an abrupt motion that makes several people flinch. Deku would keep going no matter what. You can show me, right? She says, looking straight at Monoma. Yes. Something in her expression frightens him enough not to turn this into another Class A SEKS speech. Uraraka, Ida says, stopping her with a hand on her shoulder. I need to know, she says, looking directly into his crestfallen, somber eyes, hoping that he can see the desperation in hers. He nods solemnly, loosening his grip. I'm coming with you. Achiko smiles weakly at her friend. She's glad she doesn't have to do this alone. Me too, Todoroki says, already on his feet. I'll only take 3 people at most. Minoma says nonchalantly. We don't want to get caught. I am risking my place at this school. Having 3 of you over is suspicious enough. Why are you doing this then? Mina asks balefully. Out of the goodness of my heart. Minoma says sweetly, holding a dramatic hand to his chest. I want to help out a fellow class in need. Achiko rolls her eyes, but follows him nonetheless, her face set in determination. She's willing to risk expulsion for this, she thinks, if it means that she'll know the truth. Just like Deku, she won't give up. A hand grabs her arm as she passes by one of the tables. She looks down to see Tsu holding onto it tightly. Tsu! Achiko, these rules are in place for a reason. Tsu warns in a concerned voice. Do you think Midoriya wants you to watch him get hurt? Her resolve falters for a moment because, although she tried not to think about it, she's pretty sure if Deku was here, he would be begging her not to go with Minoma. And maybe it's selfish, but she wouldn't listen to him. Or maybe she would, but not really, secretly vowing to seek Minoma out later. But now, Deku isn't here, and he won't need to know that she saw, but she needs to see, because she needs to know what was done to her best friend. So many people know already, and some of them don't know Deku at all. She's sure Deku would prefer her watching it over complete strangers on the internet. She removes her hand from Tsu's grip. It isn't hard, she isn't fighting to keep her here. Maybe she understands. She has to, Deku is her friend too. Maybe she doesn't really know what to do either. Deku doesn't need to know. Achiko says, realizing too late that sounds a lot worse said out loud than it did in her head. She doesn't take it back, though, because that's what it boils down to. She leaves without looking back. He asks Nemuri to watch Bakugo and Ishido for a few minutes. It shouldn't take much longer, he thinks, as he locks himself in the first private soundproof meeting room he can find just down the hall. The video doesn't take long to find either. Surprisingly, it's the first search result for Bakugo's name. That makes him pause for a moment. He's the winner of the sports festival, someone who's talked about a lot for both his strength and generally unpleasant behavior. He is controversial. As much as he hates that one of his most promising students is being treated like every other piece of gossip, it should at least make this incriminating video harder to find right now. But it doesn't. And that's the first sign that the situation is even more serious than it seems. That maybe it isn't just the police looking for any reason to take UA down, or Ishido's tendency to get swayed by other people's emotions. The second sign is the very first shot of the video. He doesn't expect to see chubby, freckled cheeks and fearful green eyes staring up at him when he taps on it. He doesn't expect to see Midoriya at all, but maybe he should have. Watch this, worthless Deku. Bakugo says, sending an explosion at Midoriya. It hits him. It isn't just to intimidate. Bakugo isn't even surprised at the way Midoriya yells and stumbles. He meant to do this. Shota lets himself fall into the nearest chair, rewinds the first few seconds of the video and leans closer to the phone in his hands. It doesn't make it better. He can spot a bit of blood on Midoriya's neck after the smoke of Bakugo's explosion disperses. This isn't a fight they're having. Midoriya is held down by some other kids with blurred-out faces. He tells Bakugo to stop, but Bakugo doesn't hesitate to keep going. His explosions cut through the silence of the office, but his words are even louder when he calls Midoriya worthless and useless over and over again. Some cuts have been made in the video and there are a few moments without sound. Shota wonders what words were deemed bad enough to be removed if the ones that echo in his ears weren't. These 2 kids look just like his students. They're smaller, younger, but the words Bakugo says are familiar. The way he uses them is familiar too. But they've never seemed as harmful as they do now, accompanied by severe damage. Or maybe Shota should have seen how harmful they were from the beginning. Maybe it's just that he never really listened before. Bakugo isn't simply calling Midoriya names, He's letting off explosions on the wall right next to his head now. There's too much smoke to see anything clearly, but a piece of debris probably hit Midoriya on the head, because once the view is clear again, there's blood on his forehead and a dazed look in his eyes. Bakugo doesn't stop. Not even now, when it's clear that Midoriya's injured. The next explosion is aimed at Midoriya's exposed, thin chest. They must have taken his shirt off before the video, and isn't that repulsive? It's covered in bruises and smaller burns, some of them at least a few days old. Midoriya's fighting against the arms restraining him, the ones pushing him back against the wall. There are tears in his eyes, but he doesn't beg a learned response. Shota thinks distantly, he knows they won't stop. Kids are laughing without loosening their grips. Bakugo takes a few steps back and lets off one of his explosions, talking about his improved aim as Midoriya cries out. The others gush at Bakugo's skills and Bakugo tells them to shut up. But not a second later he does it again. Shota feels sick. This one will hurt nerd. I'm sorry, Kaken. Aye. Midoriya's young voice says breathlessly. I didn't mean to insult you. You won't ever be like All Might. A word is cut out again. Nobody. You don't get to stand in my way. I wasn't here trying to. I just didn't want you to make him cry. Shut up, Bakugo gets what he commanded by aiming an explosion at Midoriya's other side. Midoriya whimpers. All of this happened because Midoriya had, what? Stood up for someone? Gotten involved in Bakugo's business? Shota knew that Bakugo had some complexes he had to work through, but this is more extreme than he could have ever imagined. Bakugo just keeps going, furiously aiming explosions at different parts of Midoriya's body while his other student is trying to apologize and calm him down. But Bakugo doesn't listen. He keeps letting his anger out on Midoriya, and whatever Midoriya says only makes it worse. He seems to realize this too, for he stops talking at some point, although that might just be due to his weakening condition. And the kids, even the ones behind the camera, are laughing, cheering Bakugo on, even when Midoriya's legs give out and the only thing holding him upright is the tight grip on his arms. They have to be bruised by now. Kids are cruel. Even when Bakugo finally stops throwing explosions, he keeps throwing his insults at Midoriya. The kid with the camera comes closer to Midoriya and zooms in on his injuries. Shota's breath hitches, and he has to blink away the vision-blurring moisture in his eyes. Look at that, the camera kid says, voice full of glee, as if he set his eyes on an item he's always wanted, not a small chest full of blood and torn skin. He zooms in on it and Shota almost GGS at the extent of the damage. Midoriya's side is black, probably charred. The area isn't small either. There are blisters all around it. How can they laugh when they see this? The kids let Midoriya go and he's dropped to the floor, his injured side hitting the asphalt of the street corner they seem to be in. They don't care about the dirt on the ground getting into the open wound. Some of them laugh at Midoriya's pained gasp. Midoriya curls up into a ball on the ground, also uncaring of aggravating his injuries. Another kid kicks at him. Midoriya whimpers. The kid's face is blurred, but his voice is smug when he says, "You can't do anything against us." "Look at you," Bakugo says, coming up close. "Cowering on the floor like the useless Deku you are." Bakugo doesn't falter at seeing what he did up close. No, he takes a step back, lifts his leg and Shota winces in anticipation at the kick aimed at Midoriya's bloody side. The screen goes black abruptly, recommended videos popping up titled, "Why Bakugo Katsuki Shouldn't Be a Hero PT2, and there seems to be a third and fourth part of this." His fingers clench on the phone. This wasn't a single incident. Bakugo was what, 13 here? Did he do something like this at 14? 15? 16? Did he do this at UA? Shota slams a fist on the table, trying to channel his frustration. It doesn't work. He would have known if this had been going on right under his nose, wouldn't he? Shota's seen the worst of the worst as an underground hero. He knows how to prepare for a night out patrolling, knows how to prepare himself for a number of things underground heroes have to deal with. He's used to seeing torture and its aftermath. He's used to seeing people die and telling kids that their family isn't coming back. He's gotten used to a lot of things, but that doesn't mean he doesn't care. And that doesn't mean he's prepared to find those things within the safe walls of UA. Shota forces himself to tap on point 2, forces himself to keep watching. If Midoriya had to go through this, Shota can force himself to watch, to understand the situation. At least Midoriya is wearing clothes in the other videos. Although, the thin layer of his middle school uniform doesn't offer a lot of protection against Bakugo's close-range attacks and ends up singed and clinging to his skin by the end of it. Bakugo burns Midoriya's shoulders, practices his martial arts skills on him, tells him to kill himself and damages his belongings. Bakugo is especially annoyed when Midoriya doesn't try to fight back even without his cronies holding him down. He seems to take it as a personal insult, not seeming to realize that he's seeing the results of his own behavior. Midoriya can't fight back, not because he's physically held down, but because he's been held down for so long he doesn't know how to get up even when he has the chance. He has never been taught to do so. Most of the videos are set inside a school building. Sometimes teachers walk by in the background without saying anything. No reaction beyond discomfort and the occasional moment of hesitation in which they might consider to interfere. But they never do. It's the fifth and last part when his fears are confirmed. Both Bakugo and Midoriya are wearing UA uniforms. He covers his face with his hands, but the images won't go away. No wonder they're investigating them. The video wasn't recorded on school grounds, at least. It's in one of the dark alleyways of the city. The one with the heroes are lit TT graffiti, a few streets away from UA. The only other person around seems to be the camera kid this time. "What are you still doing here, extra?" Bakugo asks, talking to him. "Nothing," he says, filming the ground. "Just waiting for you to finish." "I said FNG no already. Get lost." Bakugo turns back to Midoriya. Camera kid TSKS and films from afar. Bakugo explodes the wall next to Midoriya's head. That seems to be his go-to harmful intimidation tactic. He shakes Midoriya by the shoulders and yells at him some more, but luckily, unlike in the previous videos, Midoriya doesn't walk away with third-degree burns, just a few barely visible bruises on his face. Shota is glad it's over quickly. Judging by the light distribution, this happened early in the morning, most likely before classes. Didn't Shota see the dust in Midoriya's hair? The bruises? He couldn't have written them off as training too hard, because they're fresh and noticeable enough to be concerning. There's even a spot of blood in his hair, Shota realizes as he zooms in on Midoriya's face. The brief close-up look at Midoriya reveals that he doesn't have any scars on his hands. This must have happened sometime at the beginning of the year, when Shota still thought of Midoriya as a lazy, reckless kid, too arrogant to train his quirk. He probably thought he was roughhousing with his friends before school. He failed as a teacher, as a human being, for not checking up on Midoriya. He places the phone on the table, face down. Did his other students, his heroic, idiotic students, join in on this? Was this going on here at UA? Were they laughing like those other kids, cruelly watching on in the background as a peer is blown to pieces? Ashido seemed horrified enough, but what about the others? Shota sends Netsu the link to the videos in case he hasn't seen them already. He follows that up with the message, "I'm suspending Bakugo." The reason should be self-explanatory. He'll be expelled, but only once the videos are proven as reliable. Ask police to test for footage manipulation if they haven't already. He doubts it, but there are all kinds of quirks these days, and he wants to give Bakugo the small benefit of the doubt he can give. He texts Nemuri to take Bakugo to the principal's office, because he's not sure he can keep control of himself if he sees him right now. When he gets Nemuri's message of agreement, he wipes the tears from his face and makes his way back to where he left Ashido. He escorts her back to the dorms. He'll hold off on punishment for now, despite the property damage, and finds the group of kids from before in Shoji's dorm room. They look rattled, which isn't surprising if they saw what Shota saw. He regrets not having forbidden them from watching it. For their own sake and Midoriya's. Their reaction could be an act. There's an echo of laughter in Shota's ears. "Did you tell anyone?" They shake their heads. "Good," he says, even though there's nothing good about this situation. "You're not to tell anyone about this. Not about Bakugo, not about anything. There will be an investigation, and I don't want anyone to have the chance to prepare themselves for it." There's a moment of silence as they process his words. Siro says horrified. You don't seriously think we would do something like this? I didn't. But then I watched the videos. He lets those words hang in the quiet of the room. He collects their phones and leaves, ignoring how their devastated, guilt-ridden expressions twist at his heart. He can't let himself be fooled by them. He let Bakugo fool him for months. He won't make the same mistake again. Katashi didn't think his video would blow up like this. It even made it on the news. People and reporters alike are gathering in front of UA to protest. And everyone seems to agree that Bakugo is less than dirt, not in those words, but that's the consensus. This turned out a lot better than he expected. Katashi smirks. Leans back in his desk chair, staring at All Might's smiling face on the wall. So, this is what it feels like to be powerful, huh? He single-handedly changed the world. Soon, UA will have to face consequences, and so will Bakugo, for underestimating a pesky insect like him. They rejected him when he's capable of such things. All thanks to poor trembling little Deku. Everyone's praising him for exposing the dark truth of society, but really, all he did was ask his friends to send whatever they have of Deku getting beaten to a pulp or otherwise attacked by Bakugo. He even asked other former classmates if they have anything. His teachers would be proud to see this sort of diligence they claim he lacks. Bakugo, taken down by insects and reduced to dirt. He should have done this while they were still in the same class. He would love to see the look on his face. Katashi, come here right now. His mom yells, voice angry as usual. He rolls his eyes but gets to his feet. He doesn't expect to find 2 police officers in his living room. It seems Monoma isn't only talking a lot when it comes to insulting Class A, he's talking all the time. And a lot of it is about himself. They walk at a swift pace but not quick enough to draw attention to themselves. They need to hurry, though unless they want to wait, they don't have any more lessons today. How could she forget? Monoma, how is it that you can show us the video with no Wi-Fi? Ida asks, and Achiko hasn't even thought of that. If Monoma lied to them, she will punch him. I saved them knowing they'd be deleted. Were they deleted? Ida asks at the same time Todoroki says, them? No, they haven't been deleted yet, but they will be. Society doesn't want to know about things like this. That sounds dramatic. And I said them because there are several videos. I'm pretty sure Kendo said that already. You guys really are dumb. I don't know how anyone could think you were the superior Kendo grows a fist threateningly. Monoma shuts up. She's glad Kendo's here with them. Videos, she thought, hoped, that it'd be one short clip of Bakugo yelling things at Deku. It sounds like she was wrong. Monoma hands them a tablet. Take a seat, he says, gesturing at his bed. Monoma's room looks like a theater. There are curtains around the bed and way too many chairs scattered around the room, facing the bed. It's perfect for the kind of drama Monoma's into. Ochako wonders if he likes acting out his fantasies of defeating the evil class. An image of Monoma standing up on the bed and emphatically performing for an audience of plushies rises to the forefront of her mind. She bites back her laughter. I'll supervise you to make sure you don't damage anything in this delicate arrangement. Ochako coughs. Monoma shoots her a look, and Ochako thinks he might know it was a disguised laugh. Maybe he's aware of being a drama queen. Having Monoma here isn't great, but it's nice enough of him to let them watch them. As soon as she presses play, however, her humor disappears. It's soon replaced by a swirling whirl of horror she can feel trying to tear her rib cage apart. Watch this, worthless Deku. Bakugo says gleefully. He looks like her classmate. She's familiar with these smirks, this anger and these explosions, but she never expected it could be this twisted. He hurts Deku and he doesn't stop. Deku's crying out in pain, he's apologizing, he's trying to break free, but while there's more of Bakugo, there's less of Deku. He's not applying all the things he knows about Bakugo's quirk to free himself. He isn't using his quirk, not once, not even when there's no other way out. He is not determined to break free, not really, despite his feeble attempts at talking Bakugo down. Deku is strong, she knows that. Even if his body looks weak here, that doesn't change anything, but he isn't trying. He isn't. And that scares her. Several times she wants to cry out, "Can't you see he's hurt already? Why are you doing this?" Even before Bakugo decides to use Deku as a dartboard, he must have hurt Deku. His exposed skin is full of scars and half-healed wounds, and he's so small. A lot smaller than he is now, and he isn't exactly big. This must have been a few years ago. This one will hurt, nerd. She feels sick. This is crazy, she chokes out through the lump in her throat. She shakes her head. Her face is wet, but she doesn't care enough to wipe the tears away. She owes it to Deku to watch this. Do you think Midoriya wants you to watch him get hurt? Tsu's words echo in her ears as she watches her friend's head fall forward as if he didn't have the energy to hold it up anymore. Iju just didn't want you to make him cry. Shut up, Deku might not want her to do this, but he might just need it. Bakugo likes to yell a lot, and Ochako needs to remember every vile thing he says to refute them to Deku. The video is long, too long. She can't imagine how much this hurt Deku if it hurts her this much just to watch. You can't do anything against us. At some point, Ida put a trembling hand on her shoulder. It's only now that the first video is over that she's realizing how tight his grip is. She places her hand on his, offering and receiving comfort at the same time. Her own hand shakes just as much as his. She can't bring herself to say anything because there's nothing, or maybe too much, to say. Play the next one. Todoroki says, voice cold as ice. Ochako looks at him and wonders how she could forget he was there when his eyes are burning with a rage hotter than his dad's fire. His fists are clenched in his lap. Instead of drawing closer to her like Ida, he moved farther away. His shoulders are drawn, posture rigid. It reminds her of Deku. Both her Deku and the one in the video. Now she's able to understand more about why that is. And isn't that concerning? She taps on the next video. It's good for Bakugo that he was expelled. If he was still here, she's pretty sure the three of them would have tracked him down by now. And no matter how strong he is, with their combined anger, that wouldn't have ended well for him. More than rage though, she feels regret. Because she can't travel back in time and save Deku. She's powerless. And she knows the others have to feel the same way. The worst part of being a hero is that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you're unable to do anything. She felt it at the Hasaikai raid, but this is the first time she's experiencing it to this extent, in such a personal situation. She can't stop seeing flashes of the videos on their way back to the cafeteria, of Deku lying hurt on the ground, of Bakugo's hand on his shoulder burning holes in his middle school uniform, of Bakugo smirking at words he says that couldn't be more untrue, of Deku's peers laughing or walking past without sparing him a concerned glance where his friends. Of all the ways Bakugo managed to hurt her friend in the span of the longest 30 minutes of her life. In their haste to follow Monoma, they left their bags and lunch trays at the table. She didn't eat much, but she doubts the nausea will subside before they arrive. None of them say anything. It feels disrespectful, almost, to talk, because no words could be enough to express the scope of emotions they're feeling. None of them know what to do. It's quiet and awkward, but it feels fitting. A group of people passes nearby, shooting wide-eyed glances at them, as if they were some kind of freak show. Do they know who they are? Do they know they're close to Deku? Did they see what she saw? How can they stare at them if they did? How could they stare at Deku with no shame? With no care for more than witnessing something sensational? She wonders. Why are people like this? It makes her angry. Todoroki's glare is even deadlier, but they don't seem to realize, or if they do, they don't care. Ida is marching determinedly forward, not sparing them a glance. Were people like this when they walked to class this morning? It feels like a lifetime ago, but Deku knew something was wrong before it all started. Her heart clenches painfully thinking about him, her best friend, not the hurt child in the video, but aren't they one and the same? Almost as if she would never see him again. Which is ridiculous, because Deku isn't more than 500 meters away, and she saw him just an hour ago. Still, she can't shake the feelings of loss and regret as Tsu, who was sitting at a table with Jiro, Yaoyorozu and their backpacks, stands up to hug her. They all lost more than just Bakugo. I trust you remember the investigation I mentioned at the beginning of class. Aizawa says, raising his eyebrows in question, but Izuku couldn't forget. He swallows and nods. There in one of the comfortable private offices All Might takes him to sometimes. It doesn't bode well that the last time he was in this particular room he found out about All for One. Room I-41. There's another investigation I didn't tell you about. Aizawa sags a bit in his armchair, as if the mere thought of what he's about to say drained him. Izuku sits up straighter in contrast, not even touching the comfortable back of the couch. It's an investigation into Bakugo's treatment of you, more specifically several counts of assault and aggravated assault against your person. There's a moment of expectant silence, in which Aizawa seems to wait for it to sink in. It doesn't. Izuku stares at his teacher, uncomprehending. What? I see. Aizawa nods gravely, more to himself than at Izuku. He takes a deep breath, as if steeling himself. Your phones weren't only collected because of the investigation but also to quell the spread of 5 videos showing Bakugo committing said acts of assault. Izuku just keeps staring at his teacher. Is this a logical ruse? There's nothing he wishes for more than for Kaken to burst into the room right now and yell, "Got you, stupid Deku!" Of course he's lying. Izuku wouldn't even be embarrassed about it. The original videos were removed recently, but there are several reposts online. Aizawa goes on, and it doesn't look like this will end with, but this was a logical ruse. Go back to class this time. The police will want to ask a few questions at the station tomorrow. Since your mother is out of the country, I will be the one accompanying you. His heart is beating out of his chest, processing things faster than his brain is at the moment. My mom? You told my mom? His voice sounds distant to his own ears. As your guardian, she had to be informed. Aizawa says, leaning forward, closer to Izuku. Izuku wonders how much more he hurt his mom with this. Midoriya, I know this is a lot to take in, but... Izuku stops listening to him, mind racing. Kaken is in trouble. More than just trouble. He's accused of a crime. Was he arrested? This is too much, but he should really listen to Aizawa in case there's more. But there's a sinking feeling in his stomach, a slow, terrifying realization that Aizawa really isn't about to announce this as a lie. He trails off, mind incapable of keeping up with his mouth, and Aizawa quiets down immediately as if every word from Izuku was especially important. Izuku shifts uncomfortably. Was Kaken expelled because of this? Because of me? Aizawa frowns, like when someone asks a shockingly stupid question in class. Was this a stupid question? Maybe, but he isn't sure. He committed serious offenses. Do you understand, Midoriya? This is a lie. His mind screams. A dream. Wake up, Izuku. He wants to pinch himself again, but Izuku has enough awareness left to know that that would be weird. He clenches his fists in the fabric of his pants instead. I would have expelled Bakugo even if he wasn't criminally charged. Aizawa says, sounding disproportionately angry. It makes Izuku snap his head up. I don't condone the way he treated you, nor does UA permit any form of bullying. Izuku looks at Aizawa, really looks at him and almost recoils at the gentle look in his eyes. He's never seen Aizawa look at anyone but Eri like this, like he was trying to calm a small, hurt child. It's unnerving. It makes sense for Eri, considering she is a small, hurt child, but he's not. Midoriya, Aizawa says softly. I know I failed you and I apologize for that. What? Izuku is too shocked to refute this before Aizawa continues, but I ask you to trust me this one time. Tell me, he takes a deep breath, is anyone else hurting you? He didn't expect to be asked that, but Aizawa looks too guilty for his liking. No, sensei, of course not. Why would you? Then it hits him like a punch in the gut at 100%. Is the school being investigated because of this? Aizawa sighs. Among other things. But don't feel responsible for this, it isn't your fault. How can Aizawa say that? The more he hears about this, the more it sinks in, the more it seems like this whole mess was caused by him. He managed to inconvenience an entire school and got a student expelled. And arrested. The couch is too big, there's too much space on either side of him. Or maybe Izuku is too small. He does feel like a small child in a way. A child who doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know what he did wrong until he's sitting in front of his parents waiting to be scolded. But no one seems to want to scold him. He feels like he doesn't know anything anymore. Tomorrow, you will be examined at the police station by the police hero justicer. Do you know what that means? Izuku nods numbly. Good. Go get some rest and take some time to digest this. Meet me in front of this room at 9 a.m. 9? But that's during class. Aizawa doesn't dignify that with a verbal response. He simply gives him a look that seems to say, "Are you seriously worried about that right now?" with an air of someone who isn't even surprised. So, I won't be going to class at all then, or? He knows he shouldn't be worried about this, but he doesn't want to misunderstand things and make this even harder on everyone. No, kid, you won't be going to class. Aizawa stands up. Izuku does the same, walking to the door a few steps behind him. When they're about to part ways, Aizawa gives him a few more words to think about. And Midoriya, if anyone bothers you or hurts you in any way, come to me or tell another teacher. He pats him lightly on the shoulder. You're not alone in this. His teacher walks away, hands in his pockets. His words are kind, even more so coming from his stern teacher. Why then does Izuku feel so sick? Once Izuku is in the safety of his room and not at the mercy of stares that have gotten worse over lunch, he comes to the conclusion that he didn't daydream the whole thing. Now, you might think that this isn't a very groundbreaking realization considering that he just passed a common room full of people who looked like they were mourning someone, especially when they were looking at him. Izuku walked and looked away, saying something about homework. No one stopped him, but he could feel their eyes on him as he left the room. He might be a coward for running away. He's sure All Might or Mirio would find a way to cheer everyone up, but they probably all know by now that Izuku got their classmate and friend expelled, their phones, Wi-Fi and hero training taken away, and probably caused a lot more trouble he doesn't want to think about. Heck, they're still grieving for Kaken. How cruel would it be to make them to deal with the person responsible for those feelings? He should stay out of their way. Forever or until he can fix this. All Might would know what to do, but the smiling faces on his wall don't give him advice, and Izuku can't face him after what he did. He buries his face in his knees, not wanting to see All Might's face for perhaps the first time in his life. And his mom, she must be frantic with worry. He could finally convince her to leave the country for a work-related trip. She recently got a promotion to program manager, which in her company requires a lot more traveling. His mom speaks 3 languages, and this was the first time she got to travel to Bordeaux with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to practice her French skills around native speakers. Izuku could see the excitement in her eyes behind her nervous smile when she came to UA to say goodbye. She gave up so many things for Izuku, and now he ruined this for her too. He can't even call her to explain. Izuku sniffles. Heroes shouldn't hurt people like this. Izuku wants to be a hero who can save everyone with a smile, but how could he ever help anyone if he keeps making things worse? Keeps worrying everyone? He hugs his knees tightly as the pressure in his throat becomes too big to swallow. He barely paid attention to it, but Aizawa looked so tired. Izuku can feel the tears soak his uniform pants. Aizawa must have had a lot to deal with, all of UA had. And still he wasn't yelling at him. He was speaking softly, gently, as if he was a precious All Might limited edition glass figurine that needed to be handled with care. And he looked so guilty. All because Aizawa misunderstood something he saw. Maybe the videos are fake, made by villains who wanted to damage UA's reputation. Izuku lifts his head slowly, blurry vision drawn to the shelf with his All Might Silver Age figurine. That's it. Izuku thinks, sitting up straight and wiping his face with the sleeve of his shirt. He stands up from his position at the foot of his bed and rapidly flips through Hero Notebook and there it is. He stops at a page with a sloppy drawing of a muscular human back that has a thin horizontal opening between the shoulder blades. Justicer's Quirk analyses a person's physical state. He can print out a list of injuries a person sustained in a certain time frame. He can print out up to 20 pages at a time. He helped countless police investigations and medical diagnoses alike. Similar to Ragdoll, he can analyze the weaknesses of up to 40 people around him. He's learned to channel his quirk in his brain instead of his back for combat, but he can only do it for a short PRD of time before losing complete awareness of his environment. He specializes in rescue missions and cooperation with the police. With his quirk and exceptional decision-making skills, He's helped save a lot of lives. He's so cool. If it wasn't for the way thinking about his upcoming trip to the station makes his gut clench, Izuku would be buzzing with excitement about getting to meet him. As it is, he simply hopes that Justicer will be able to clear Kaken's name. Kaken pushed him around when they were younger and he said some mean things, but none of these should merit aggravated assault charges, especially when you consider the young age of the perpetrator. Izuku doesn't know much about the legal system unless you count the parts pertaining to heroics, and even that knowledge is lacking, but the statute of limitations has to matter in some way. Kaken hasn't really injured him outside of fights in over a year. A few bruises and burns, but none of them bad enough for the sort of charges Kaken faces. And the difference between simple and aggravated assault is a big one. Justicer will see that none of his injuries were bad enough to constitute for aggravated assault, and the charges against both Kaken and UA will be dropped. It's probably not that simple, but Izuku has to hope it will be. If he can't do that, then he jumps at a knock on the door and drops his notebook. Midoriya? Ida's voice says through the door. Are you alright? Weiss. I'm coming. Izuku cleans his face with a tissue and hopes that'll be enough to hide that he was crying. He wonders if Ito was told about the videos. He wasn't in the common room, so he might. The moment he sees his friend, his hopes are crushed. Although he's smiling at him, his bloodshot eyes are magnified by his glasses. Izuku's stomach twists with guilt. I brought you some dinner. A healthy meal helps, even in the direst of situations. Ida says, holding out the bento in his hands, which has gone unnoticed by Izuku until now. Lunch Rush agreed to prepare one. He is a diligent worker. Ida speaks more loudly than usual. Thanks, Ida. Izuku's eyes tear up again at the kind gesture. Ida gives him a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Izuku invites Ida inside and places the food on his desk. You can sit on the chair if you want. Izuku says, but Ida's not listening. He's looking at Izuku's shirt rather than his face. Izuku follows his gaze self-consciously but doesn't find anything out of the ordinary on the white material. Ida. His friend comes closer to him and places his hands on both of his shoulders. We know you can talk to us about anything, right? The familiar words make his breath hitch. He remembers saying them and he remembers hearing them just a few weeks ago. Everyone in the class, we're here for you. There it is again, that same feeling of discomfort he felt in the office with Aizawa. They're wrong about all of this, but Izuku can't reject their kindness, not after all he took from them. Thank you, Ida. He says, voice choked. The same to you. You can come to me if you want to talk about anything that's going on. Ida's smile falls even further. Not that you have to. I understand if I'm not the person you want to talk to about any of this. He chuckles awkwardly. Ida frowns. What do you mean? It's just that. Izuku looks away from his friend's face to his own fidgeting hands. I understand if you don't want to talk to me after all the trouble I caused, or just don't want to see me after I got Kaken expelled, you know? There's a beat of silence. I could never blame you for that, Midoriya. His weak voice contrasts with the tightening grip on his shoulders. No one does for any of it. And frankly, I find it concerning that you do after all he did to you. Ida, I don't know what you heard, but Kaken didn't do anything W. Don't say that. Ida shakes him with a desperation that seems to have come out of nowhere. He sounds angry. I saw what he did, Midoriya, and it is inexcusable behavior, not just for a future hero but for anyone. Saw? Izuku asks, and Ida stills in his movements, looking away guiltily. Ida, Izuku asks again, what did you see? He hopes the answer isn't what he thinks it is. Ida sighs, deflating. Videos of Bakugo causing irreversible harm to you. But how? Izuku asks, almost at a loss for words. I though thought we couldn't. I mean, we don't even have any phones and there's no internet rewrite? Monoma. Ida says, voice small. He downloaded them. Monoma. From Class B. Yes. I apologize, but I don't regret watching them. Ida says, meeting Izuku's eyes, looking determined. As your friend, it is my duty to know such things, especially when you won't tell us anything. You just continue to lie, even now. And say nothing was wrong. Because it's the truth. Izuku yells, surprising both of them. He lowers his voice again. Kaken is an a-hole, but he doesn't deserve any of this. You can't be serious. I am. Izuku says firmly, voice just a bit cold. He wishes Ida had asked him first before watching videos that are probably edited to make Kaken look bad. Who else saw? Maybe half the class? Izuku's jaw drops. Is he some kind of freak show? Did losing their phones make them so desperate for entertainment that they resorted to this? Can I be alone for a while? Ida looks unsure, so Izuku adds, please. Ida leaves, but not without a few parting words of comfort. Izuku thanks him, closes the door and locks it quickly. He throws himself face first onto the bed and screams into his pillow. Shota, Hisashi says from his hunched position at the computer. You need to see this. Nedzu ended their last conference with the parting words. Enjoy your free evening while it lasts. Naturally, after one exchanged look, Shota and Hisashi decided not to make use of their rarely allotted, precious free time. Rather, they spend it getting caught up on recent affairs related to Midoriya's case. They found more than Shota expected to find, and Shota knows never to get his hopes up. Now, sheet. He says under his breath at seeing a face covered in hands that may or may not be real appear on Hisashi's screen. You can say that again. Shigaraki's sitting in a chair in the middle of a dark, empty room. After a few moments of dramatic silence, he starts monologuing. About society and heroes, how both of these instances are ignorant, but especially the heroes. People will keep getting hurt if there's no change. Then he starts talking about Midoriya, as if he had any right to mention his student's name. He wasn't allowed to use his quirk to defend himself. Our children are raised to be SBMSSV and cowering by society. His speech is all over the place, alternating between liberate our oppressed quirk society and the same old heroes are bad. Midoriya is reduced to a stylistic device to get his most recent point across. It makes Shota's blood boil. There's no way anyone will buy this. Shigaraki improved rhetorically, but he's far from convincing. A while ago they were quite intent on killing Midoriya and making Bakugo one of them. Hisashi shows him some of the comments on the video and Shota loses faith in society for a different reason. This is Stain all over again. Only worse, because people are even happier to voice their agreement without a second thought. Some are well-intentioned, the poor souls showing support for Midoriya and the League. They seem to have conveniently forgotten that the same League attacked our children and the outrage that caused. This is a effing mess. Hisashi says, leaning back and pushing his rolling chair away from the desk. He looks as exhausted as Shota feels. None of this is helping Midoriya anymore. Shota snorts and sits on the desk. When did it ever? He mutters into his capture scarf. Come on, Sho, this started from a good place. It was about drama. People love it. You're too cynical. Hisashi says, rolling his eyes. And you're too naive. Not. He says, crossing his arms with a pout as if they didn't have this conversation on a daily basis. And childish, says the guy who plays sleepover in class. He mumbles, quiet enough for Shota to pretend he didn't hear. Hisashi sighs, smile falling with the air of someone who just remembered something earth-shattering. I'll have to get up early to sub your classes tomorrow. You'll manage. Shota says, no ounce of sympathy in his voice. Aren't you scared your class will love me more than you? I don't care. Seriously, Shota? When will you admit? Shota lets the familiarity of the conversation wash over him. It feels nice, being in their shared office, a place they've been in a million times before, only clothes and folders marking their respective desks in an otherwise smoothly amalgamated room. At a time when bombshells lurk around every corner, having a fireproof place to return to, in conversations and the real world alike, is a comfort he never wants to give up. Fireproof places are only a temporary solution, though, as long as the fire's still raging outside. And he's not sure how they'll be extinguishing this one. Deleting the videos and collecting the students' phones was like spilling oil over it. The videos have been re-uploaded over and over again, which made the public more outraged at the heroes even though posting them broke several laws in the first place. Removing the videos made the story even more sensational, and internet personalities have been talking about the topic more and more on their own platforms. It's not Midoriya who's given a voice, this only made other voices louder. Shota hates the media. Midoriya shouldn't have to deal with becoming the talk of the nation and their fickle attitudes halfway through his first year of high school. He rubs at the skin between his eyebrows and sighs, leaning his back against the wall. Shota? You're not listening to me, are you? No. But your voice is nice. Yes. A mischievous grin stretches across his face. It wouldn't be scary on anyone else, but this isn't the first time Shota has had to deal with it. What did he do? So, I could say whatever I want? Like how I think you're an amazing friend, an affectionate, compassionate. Stop. Hisashi ignores him. Parental, kind, docile teacher. When Hisashi gets in these moods, he can only be stopped by his capture weapon. He's glad he had the foresight to learn how to shut people up with it. It comes in handy several times a week. Minoma's room is lonely. The empty, untouched chairs look like they long to be filled. And Minoma, the sole inhabitant of the room, will never be able to fill them all. The walls are crowded with posters and, surprisingly enough, photos of several members of Class B, dressed up for the play they put on just a few weeks ago, sitting on the couch of the common room, having a picnic on the grass outside, going shopping. And Minoma isn't even on all of them. Even if it's usually covered up by his mean words, Minoma really does seem to care about his classmates. Oddly enough, the only hero poster on the wall is of Justicer. There are shelves filled with books and movies, some of which correspond with the posters on the walls. Both the shelves and the decoration are arranged in an order that only Minoma understands. This room has personality. Your room is really cool, he says, looking back at Minoma, who's leaning against the only uncovered part of the wall beside the door, arms crossed. Minoma looks him up and down, as if to gauge his sincerity. Izuku shifts. You're the first one to say that. Really? You designed it really well. Minoma shrugs. Might just be the only one in Class A that has taste. He says, but don't let this inflate your big head even more. Izuku chuckles awkwardly, glad that at least Minoma doesn't act any different around him. It's refreshing. After a minute of Minoma staring at Izuku while Izuku is actively trying to resist the urge to run and hide behind the red curtains around the bed, Izuku speaks up again. Can I see the videos then? Look, Midoriya, I really don't know if I should show you. What? Izuku says, some of his irritation from earlier resurfacing. You had no problem showing it to everyone else. When it was starting to get dark and he couldn't see anyone outside anymore, Izuku decided to try his luck. He climbed out his dorm window unnoticed, only to run into Yaoyorozu and Jiro in Class B's common room. They practically begged him not to come up here. Yaoyorozu even said, I don't think it's good for you to relive past traumatic experiences. Some members of Class B nodded along, as if they knew better than him. Jiro wrapped one of her earphone jacks around his wrist, ready to physically make him stay. Izuku almost started screaming at them, because didn't they understand that he was doing this to help? Izuku doesn't think it's fair that people decide what he should and shouldn't do when it's supposedly about his past traumatic experiences. He needs to see how they modified the videos so that he can even begin to fix things. He shook Jiro's quirk off and activated full cowling, ignoring the concerned cries he could hear coming from behind him. Yes, Minoma says slowly as if Izuku was a particularly ignorant child. But you, he raises a hand to point at Izuku, are at the center of all of this. I know, Izuku thinks bitterly, I wish I wasn't. There's a reason why you weren't shown anything by the adults. If the teachers find out, I might be arrested alongside your criminal classmate. Izuku pales at the reminder. How do you? Minoma raises his arms as if it was obvious. The world would have to be even more effed up than it is already if Blasty wasn't arrested for this. The videos must have been edited to look really bad, then. Izuku raises his hands too, in a placating gesture. I won't tell anyone, Minoma, I promise. He knows he sounds desperate, but he doesn't care. This and Justicer are his only chances. I thought you guys were supposed to be more sensible than this. Monoma sighs and shakes his head. That's not how it works. What if you go crazy, have some kind of breakdown or a panic attack or something? I wouldn't. Monoma gives him a skeptical look. Does Monoma really think him so weak-willed? Why do you even think that? Because I watched 4 videos of your steady mental decline. That sounds ridiculous. What would you know about that? Izuku snaps, sick of being patronized. Believe it or not, Monoma says, grabbing the tablet on his desk and throwing it on the bed. Izuku takes a step back at his wild movements. I know more about it than you think, but hey, if you don't want my help, knock yourself out. He sits down in a chair next to the bed. Izuku's irritation subsides as quickly as it came. Monoma was just looking out for him? In his own way. Do you have a laptop? At Izuku's nod, he goes on, you'll have to bring it over later so I can transfer the videos. I don't want to give up my spot at UA. If that's clever. Monoma props his feet up on the bed and leans back in his chair. I know. It might be shocking for you, coming from Class A and all, but some of our class has a brain. Izuku ignores his comment and makes his way to the bed, trying not to disturb any of the carefully placed objects in the room. This extends to him climbing slowly onto the bed, feeling like a ninja, avoiding chairs, the curtain and the pillows. Monoma's laugh makes him freeze in the middle of crawling over to the tablet. He spins his head around in shock at the sound. It sounds nothing like Monoma's usual manic, spiteful laughter. It sounds almost like a natural bodily reaction. Monoma even looks pleasantly amused. You know you don't weigh that much, right? Izuku pouts, not sure if that's an insult or not. And my bed's strong, I mean it can even handle my fibrous physique. Now it's Izuku's turn to snort. There are a lot of things he isn't sure about, but he knows that he's what word did Monoma use? A lot more fibrous than Monoma. He covers his mouth, but Monoma glares at him for it anyway. I was just trying not to disturb the pillows. Izuku explains, drawing his knees under himself and stretching his arms to pull the tablet closer to him. The bed is large, big enough for 2 people, but the distance between him and the tablet wasn't that big. He really should have done that to begin with. But the pillows. Monoma says, uncomprehending. Yeah, didn't you place the pillows like the symbol from the 6 immortal huntsmen? He points a finger at the poster of a movie with the same title on the wall, serious expression on his face. Monoma just stares back open-mouthed. He's never seen him speechless before, some insult always ready to be spit. But now he seems stupefied into silence. Eventually he says gravely, I was wrong, you are crazy already. The videos can't make it any worse. That probably means his theory on the pillow placement wasn't correct, right? Monoma stands up to get a better look at the pillows, hand on his chin as he considers them from all sides. But you're actually right. He sounds shocked and just a bit excited. I'm an accidental genius. Izuku nods. It is pretty cool. Then Monoma turns his considering gaze at Izuku, looking at him as if he saw him in a completely new light now. You've seen the 6 huntsmen? Most people haven't. He takes his seat again. I know, but it's a great metaphor for what the world without heroes would look like. Each of the 6 huntsmen stands for an issue we'd face, right? Dan is my favorite. He tries to help, but he can't because no one trusts him because they aren't used to being helped. No, they don't trust him because they know he's a huntsman, and huntsmen are distrusted for their name and powers alone. Monoma argues, gesturing wildly, all appearance of nonchalance gone. I know. But there are several scenes in which the general lack of trust in anyone is showcased by people rejecting help even when they don't know he's a huntsman. But that's beside the point, Midoriya. You remember that scene with the crying little girl? Of course, that was one of the key moments of the movie. There's that one moment when they almost kill her because she defended herself against the Drigits. It turns out that Monoma likes discussing movies. He can ramble as much as Izuku, if not more. With his friends, such discussions usually feel unbalanced because Izuku's the one saying the most, and most of them aren't exactly interested in dissecting what they see as nothing more than entertainment. When Izuku saw Monoma's taste in movies and books and their carefully arranged positions often corresponding to their message, he thought that maybe Monoma'd appreciate movies as a conversation topic. He's glad he was right, Not just for Minoma's sake, but for his own too. None of his friends like the 6 immortal huntsmen. It's too bloody for them, but it's a movie that touched Izuku deeply. Minoma too, apparently. Katie is the best. If we go along with your theory, she would stand for the destruction and chaos no heroes would mean for society. Izuku nods at his raised eyebrow. She shows the consequences of discrimination by causing further destruction? Izuku frowns. I'm not sure if I agree with her methods. Minoma scoffs. That's because you've never had to deal with it. Izuku feels a pang in his chest. No. I mean, it might help for the future of their society, but there are better ways to go about it. Minoma sighs. Sometimes chaos is necessary for positive change. Izuku exhales in relief when he sees that Minoma doesn't seem angry at him. I mean, I wouldn't do what she does, but she's an interesting character, because they exchange their interpretations for a while, but then Izuku sees the time and decides that he should really start watching the videos before curfew, preferably. He unlocks the device carefully. The app with the videos is open already. Midoriya? Yes. Izuku asks, looking back up. Are you sure you want to watch them? Minoma says, trying hard to sound indifferent. We could just keep talking about movies, you know? Izuku smiles. We can talk about them some other time if you'd like. Minoma nods seriously. I don't like it, but I have to share my vast knowledge with someone worthy, even if that person is in Class A. Izuku chuckles lightly. Sure, Minoma. He presses play on a file titled, Blastingly working his way towards expulsion the beginning. Izuku doubts that that was the original title. He can't help smiling at that. All traces of humor disappear from his face as soon as the video starts, however, and he sees his younger self's face. Izuku thinks he remembers this day. Kaken developed a new function of his quirk. He could make his explosions so dense and precise that they were almost like fire. It hurt a lot, but it healed quickly, so Izuku figured it was because his quirkless body was overly sensitive to pain. Izuku has never thought about this day, not really. If anyone had asked him if Kaken had ever aimed his fire knives at him repeatedly, Izuku would have said no, not even because he wanted to protect Kaken, but because he would have thought it was the truth. But now it's coming back to him. He sees Katashi and Yukimura's faces as they held him against the wall, full of youthful mischief, not letting him go as he fought back but couldn't do anything. He couldn't move. They were bigger and stronger, they had their quirks and the teachers on their side. Whatever he does, it doesn't matter. It felt really long, but it can't have been this long, could it? That must be edited, right? Kaken can be a JRK sometimes, but he wouldn't have gone this far, right? He feels the phantom pain on his chest, or is it in his chest? To burn so much? There's so much blood, Kaken must have been very angry. He still is. Why can't he say the right thing to make it better? He can't help. The wall is really cold against his burning skin. He needs to get away. He can't move. Why can't he move? All Might'd be so disappointed. It's getting white around the edges. Is that from the smoke, or is he about to pass out like that time Kaken hit him on the head? But Kaken never did that. What is he? His head hurts. That's right, it got hit by the wall. He squeezes his eyes shut against the pain. It hurts. The smoke is so thick he can't breathe. There's another voice. Midoriya. Is that Kaken? But no, he's Deku, and Kaken always calls him that. Did someone else come to see? People have been yelling and laughing so loudly, and he can't hear anything over the ringing in his ears. The other voices stop, but his chest still hurts. He can't breathe. He feels a jolt of panic. His eyes tear up. Why is Kaken doing this? There are hands shaking him, but he doesn't want to open his eyes. All he did was push him away from Sato. He didn't mean for him to fall over. Please stop. Please, they sound frantic. He opens his eyes, vision blurry. Midoriya? Someone says from behind him. There are chairs in front of him. Where is everyone? He flinches at a hand on his shoulder but turns his head to look in the direction of the person it belongs to. Slowly, he feels weak and sluggish. He meets Minoma's wide eyes. Breathe, Midoriya. Minoma? What is he doing here? At? He tries to speak, but the words are stuck deep in his throat. His cough comes out as a choked breath. His chest still hurts. He can't breathe. Is he dying? He lifts a hand to his chest, but he can barely feel it. Not with one for all still. His arm tingles. He can feel it go numb. Oh my. His fingers tear at the fabric of his shirt, trying to get rid of the weight pressing down on it. There's a lot I still need to do. He blinks and his vision clears a bit. Monoma squeezes his hand. You're all right, Midoriya. You need to breathe. But how could he breathe with broken ribs? That would only make things worse. He's not sure if he's still bleeding, but his ribs feel crushed. Did Muscular do this, or is it still from Kaken? But there are posters on the walls. He takes a breath and it hurts more. Great, Midoriya. Now take another breath. He doesn't want to, but Monoma sounded really relieved after he did it the first time. He takes another one. Monoma sounds happy, which makes the pain worth it. There's a poster of the 6 immortal huntsmen on the wall, but weren't they pillows? He takes another breath and looks around. Monoma. The chairs. The posters. The pillows. The sign. The 6 huntsmen. The video. The video. How could he forget? Midoriya? Izuku flinches. Do you, want to sit up? Oh no. That was Monoma. And his voice is coming from right behind Izuku. Did he just freak out in front of Monoma? He shoots up rapidly and almost falls right back down due to the dizzy spell that accompanies this action. I didn't mean jumping up, geez. He grumbles but helps him lean his back against the wall. I'm sorry, Monoma. Izuku decides against bowing, but he would if Monoma's hands weren't hovering close to him, ready to catch him if he topples over again. The other boys sitting next to him, feet tucked behind him, looking alert. He'd be blushing if all the blood hadn't just drained from his face. For what? Monoma snorts. Disturbing the pillows? Izuku can't bring himself to laugh. It feels like the pillow incident happened days ago. How long was I freaking out? You mean having a panic attack? Monoma raises an unimpressed eyebrow. And like a really bad one? Izuku winces. You know, I don't like to say I told you so, but I told you so. Although I was joking when I said the thing about the panic attack. He sighs and glances at his watch. 4 minutes. It felt longer. I really am sorry, Monoma. Izuku looks down at his lap, feeling guilty. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Monoma scoffs. The most trouble that you caused, really, was moving the pillows and I can rearrange them. Yeah, the pillow thing was pretty weird. Izuku acknowledges, because Monoma seems pretty hung up on it. Monoma chuckles. Yeah, I'm not sure if you've realized this, but I'm pretty weird too. Maybe that's why you liked my room so much. It's organized chaos. But it's my personalized organized chaos. Yeah, Izuku remembers thinking that. He looks around the room again. This room is lonely and crowded, calculated and brash, emotional and calm. It's just like Monoma, although Izuku wouldn't dare say these things out loud. Yeah, kinda like that. I still think that pillow idea was so good it could have been mine. Monoma says nonchalantly. Did he just compliment him? They sit in silence for a while. Monoma's staring at the ceiling, gaze far away. Monoma. Huh. Can I watch the other videos? Monoma laughs, but it isn't one of his genuine ones. It's cold and bitter. No. I swear I won't freak out again. Izuku hurries to reassure him. Or I could get my laptop right now. Nope. That laptop deal is off the table. He sounds angry. Izuku's eyes burn. Did he really screw up that bad? Why? He says, clearing his throat. I promise I won't bother you after this. You really are slow. This isn't about that. Monoma snaps, crossing his arms. He glares at Izuku but softens his voice. Maybe I just don't want you to pass out alone in your room. Izuku mirrors his crossed arms, but really, it's just an excuse to hug himself. I won't. You said you'd be fine watching it and look what happened. Well, it's different now. Monoma gives him a disbelieving look. Really, I remember more stuff now. Monoma turns his face to look at him fully. You mean you forgot about this? He points sharply at the tablet in front of him. Izuku focuses intently on fumbling with the fabric of his shirt sleeves, expertly ignoring the question with his heart beating loudly in chest. Maybe he shouldn't have mentioned the forgetting part. I'm no expert, but that doesn't sound very healthy. And you were like barely moving or reacting in most of the other videos. Monoma sighs. Izuku has no idea what to say to that. For a while, their combined accelerated breathing is the only sound in the room. Monoma seems almost breathless in his agitation. Then he stops and takes a single deep breath before saying, I don't usually go around telling people this, but I want to be a hero to save people like you. Izuku's posture relaxes slightly, surprised. Like me? Izuku tilts his head in confusion. People ignored by the rest of society, mistreated by idiots with flashy quirks where no one is looking or cares, the ones that are usually forgotten. This is the most serious Izuku has ever heard Monoma sound. He is looking straight ahead, determined and sure, as if he could already see all the people he'd save. Izuku can't look away from him. Monoma takes another deep breath, shoulders tensing. My sister, she could copy people's quirks like me. It isn't unusual for twins to have the same quirk. Last year Monoma swallows, tried to kill herself. Izuku's eyes widen in horror. She left a letter, and we found out that a high school guy with a strong fire quirk assaulted her. My parents tried to report the incident, but the police didn't care. They stopped listening as soon as they heard that the person my mom accused was a powerful kid attending a hero school. They didn't budge even when my sister was ready to give her statement after being released from the hospital. There was an interrogation, sure, but they told her it was pointless to press charges. His fists are clenched tightly, and he's still staring ahead, but his eyes are distant, mind probably lost somewhere in the past. I could see my sister lose hope. And I had to do something. I went to the media, asking them to print her story, maybe then things change and she could finally smile again. Monoma smiles here, but it looks sadder than if he was crying. There was a small note made about her in a newspaper next to an article about a hero winning a prize or something. I never told her about this. I wanted the world to take her seriously, but no one did. Nothing changed. I felt like Katie. I wanted the police to approve an examination with Justicer, but they couldn't even do that. Why? Izuku shakes his head, matching Monoma's feelings of frustration. My sister and I used to be very close. We did everything together. She loved theater. We used to perform little shows for our family all the time. We always put a lot of chairs in our room and imagined they were people. He chuckles and wipes at the tears with the back of his hand. Izuku wonders what his distant eyes see. Does he see himself acting out a scene from the Six Huntsmen musical with his sister? Or does he see her after she came home from the police station, hurt? Izuku hopes he remembers the good parts. Who tried to kill herself again at the beginning of the year. Monoma says, voice choked and quiet. No one found her in time. Izuku's heart aches. He's never lost anyone, not like this, but he can see the pain and regret in every line of Monoma's crumpling face. After a few moments of quiet, Monoma adds, I like my room too. Monoma doesn't let himself break down into sobs. He takes several deep breaths and turns away from the chairs to look at Izuku again. So that's why I want to be a hero. I want to help people that were hurt like her before it's too late. But I don't want to do it in the shadows. I want the world to see. I want the world to be forced to see what they're so happy to ignore. Monoma's passion fills his eyes and the room alike. It's incredible. Spotlight heroes save people where people care to be saved, where the audience cares that they saved someone. It makes for better entertainment. I want to be so good that I alone will be enough entertainment. I want to tell the cameras, hey assholes, film me save this quirkless child from his parents who use their flashy quirks to hurt him every day. He doesn't think Monoma used the word quirkless, because he knew that that's what Izuku was. Whoever posted the videos cut the word out every time, and doesn't that just confirm what Monoma is saying? But it still warms his heart that Monoma really wants to save everyone. Monoma looks at Izuku again, eyes filled with too many emotions to pick them apart. When I saw the videos, I was horrified. But when I saw the movement it created, I thought, this is something people will see. In the end you were not forgotten. Middle schoolers and high schoolers with flashy quirks can be villains too. And I want as many people to see that as possible. Do you get that? Why yes, he understands why Monoma wants to spread the videos now. It would be disrespectful to tell him about his suspicions that they are fake. But I don't want you to see. When she was still alive, Monoma says, looking pained. My sister used to have panic attacks. I didn't know what they were at the time, and I was too confused and scared to help her. He goes silent again, still lost in thought. Izuku squeezes Monoma's shoulder lightly. I'm sure you did everything you could. Izuku says, she would be proud of the person you've become. He hopes the conviction in his voice is enough to make Monoma believe this too. You helped me today. I don't think I could have calmed down without you. And you'll help so many more people in the future. You're going to become an amazing hero, Monoma. Monoma releases a sound that's somewhere between a sniffle and a laugh. How did this conversation get off track so much? He shakes his head. I know I'm going to be a great hero. I have to be. This is the first time Izuku thinks this declaration sounds sad. Monoma turns to look at Izuku, his blue eyes glassy and distant as they bore into Izuku's green ones. My sister loved Dan too, you know, but Dan sacrifices himself for the sake of people who don't care at the end. He takes another breath, as if steeling himself. The way you act reminds me of my sister. Please don't end up like them. Was Monoma asking him not to die? That would be sweet if the circumstances surrounding it weren't so depressing. Don't worry, Monoma. Izuku smiles weakly. I won't. And I won't watch the videos if it means so much to you. That's good. Monoma huffs. But don't forget to tell your stupid classmates that I was the one to give you this superb advice. He lifts his arms into the air. Spread the word that Class B is better. Izuku laughs, hoping that Monoma's Class A insults and arrogance mean he's feeling better. I will. In his room, he finds Uraraka sitting on the edge of his bed. Not for long, for as soon as she raises her head and sees him, she jumps to her feet. You're here, she says, smiling. Her eyes are clearly worried, though, as she looks him over. Izuku didn't have the chance to look at himself in the mirror, but he's sure he doesn't look his best. Crying usually accentuates the bags around his eyes, and he did quite a lot of that this afternoon. He smiles back at her weakly. Didn't get lost this time. He's not the best at jokes, but he can try for Uraraka. It seems to have backfired, though, because his friend bursts into tears not 5 seconds later. I'm sorry. Izuku's not sure what she's apologizing for, but he tells her it's okay. He pats her arms the way he does for his mom whenever she's crying. Yamamoto told me you watched the videos. Izuku stiffens, remembering that he wasn't the only one who saw it. It's available for everyone. Monoma might like it, but Izuku can't imagine seeing his pathetic younger self get bullied is going to help anyone, especially when it comes out that the videos aren't real. Are you okay? She asks, touching his arm gently. I'm okay. I think Monoma might be a pretty nice guy. Uraraka grimaces in a mixture of confusion and worry, a mirror of the expression she wore when he told her the same about Todoroki. Will he start sitting at our table now? I don't think so. It's a ridiculous idea, but Monoma surprised him today. Uraraka scrunches her nose in disgust at the idea. I'm sorry, but I still don't like that guy. That's okay. They sit down on his bed, lapsing into a tense silence. Uraraka keeps shooting him concerned glances, as if there was reason to believe he's about to fall over. It frustrates him, this sort of concern all his friends and Aizawa seem to throw at him. It's not their fault. They were manipulated by fake videos, but that doesn't mean Izuku feels any less uncomfortable at their misplaced worry. He'll tell them the truth once he has the evidence. They don't need to get their hopes up if it isn't certain that he can prove it. You have a new All Might figure, Uraraka says, and Izuku's gaze is automatically drawn to where he knows the figurine is on his shelf. Yeah. I bought it from my savings. And he rambles on about the history of the figurine despite knowing that Uraraka doesn't care, just to fill the silence. Uraraka listens attentively, even though she's not really interested, and the normalcy of the situation seems to put her at ease. It's just a figurine, useless and easily broken, trying hard to look like a famous hero even though it's only a piece of glass, but it means a lot to him. Maybe Izuku is to Uraraka what this figurine is to him, he thinks, as she continues to listen. I think you're amazing, Deku. Uraraka says after he's done, eyes crinkling into a smile. Izuku frowns at the sudden change in topic. He didn't say anything all that impressive. You're determined and kind. And you're gonna be a great hero one day. Izuku's pretty sure his face is beet red. She scoots closer, which only makes it worse. And that isn't helped when she puts her arms around him and leans her head on his shoulder. He isn't sure what to do, but leaning a bit closer to her seems like the least awkward option. She's soft and warm. Please don't, her voice cracks. She tightens her arms around him. He isn't sure how to react, so he just squeezes her arm. She sounds distressed. Please don't believe anything Bakugo said. He's just mean and angry and horrible, and he wasn't right about any of it. All right, Izuku says, voice similarly soft. He does something bold and wraps an arm around Uraraka, trying to offer comfort and show his appreciation for her care. He exhales in relief when she leans into it instead of pushing it away. I'm sorry for watching the video. It's okay. I think I would have watched it too if I was you. He admits. He feels Uraraka's gaze on his face. So close. I mean, I'm not happy about it, and I wish you didn't, but you just wanted to help, right? He had some time to think about it and decided that he shouldn't be mad. Yes. Uraraka nods into his shoulder. All Might once said that meddling when you don't need to is the essence of being a hero. He looks at his wall full of All Might posters. So really, even though I don't think you needed to do that, I understand what you were thinking. You'll be a great hero too, Uraraka. Thanks, Deku. She has tears in her eyes again. He never thought he'd be the one crying less in a conversation with her. Despite everything that happened, his friend's affection and care help ease the knots in his stomach. It's wrapped around him like the warmest of heat pads when he goes to sleep that night with an empty bento on his desk and the glass figurine Uraraka wanted to see on his nightstand. You should be happy they didn't send you to Tartarus. Shota says. Bakugo bristles on the other side of the glass window. He tsks and crosses his arms. The metallic cork containers that are secured up to his elbows are a strange mockery of the gauntlets of his hero costume. They cover his hands too, like gigantic sparring gloves. Shota couldn't come here a few days ago, when his anger was still fresh, burning brighter than the explosions Bakugo used to harm his classmate, but he felt like he was ready today. And he owes one last conversation to Bakugo as his former teacher. Maybe then the kid can learn something from all of this. You've been lucky so far. Huh? Bakugo looks up from his hunched-over position. Or unlucky if you will. I don't think society did you any favors by placing you on a pedestal. Or by never properly reprimanding you. But let's say you were lucky for getting away with what you did without being held accountable. The kid scoffs. He doesn't look remorseful, but he doesn't look angrier than usual either. He looks subdued, both physically and emotionally. Anyone would be scared being in jail for the first time. Despite trying hard to look tough, Bakugo clearly isn't an exception to that. Do you want an apology? I'm sorry, okay? Are you? Yeah. I'm sorry for beating the shit out of Deku. Happy? And I don't plan on doing it again, he adds under his breath. I never would have done it if I'd known you'd make such a dim and big deal out of it. Shota's fists clench. He wishes he could show him the videos. He's the only one who deserves to be forced to watch them, to see what he's done. I hope you'll mean that someday. Shota says coldly, not sure why he came. If it was any other villain kid he caught on his nighttime patrols, he wouldn't have come. But Shota can admit that he cares about his classes, especially this one. It'd be impossible not to after all the things he watched his students go through. He does feel some affection for the kid he saw fight tooth and nail to win the sports festival, beat himself up about All Might's retirement and help his friends achieve better grades than they ever could have without him. He likes that kid, and he owes it to the memory of him to give some advice. Bakugo will hear why what he did was wrong often enough. He should try to say something different. Shota takes a deep breath, begging for the patience to see this through without getting emotional. Bakugo, You never wanted to give up, right? It isn't impossible to get up even after this, you just have to work hard. Don't you think I effing you worked hard? Bakugo explodes. You never worked on what is essential for being a hero. I think you know what? He has to know, subconsciously at least, why else would he have singled Midoriya out like that? Just think about it and don't give up. Think about why you're here in the first place. You're at a disadvantage for perhaps the first time in your life. How could I become a FNG hero after this? Shota sighs heavily. Heroics isn't everything, is all Shota says, getting to his feet to walk out of the room. That was enough encouragement. There's a recently introduced program for younger offenders that kids who have proven to regret their crimes can qualify for. At the moment, Bakugo would only see that suggestion as an insult, but maybe he'll change and figure things out. He stops by the door and turns back around when he remembers something. Bakugo, the kid looks up at him, glaring. He's being even less polite than usual, probably because Shota isn't his teacher anymore. Why didn't you use that technique in class? What? The one you used to burn Midoriya repeatedly in middle school. I think he called it fire knives. Bakugo scoffs. I tested it and it wasn't useful. How so? Shota asks, feigning indifference. I'd think that precise, smaller explosions could make your quirk a lot more versatile, both in terms of aim and firepower. Bakugo shrugs. Didn't work that FNG well. Maybe Bakugo feels some amount of guilt about what he did, however much he's trying to suppress it. Shota hopes he does, for his own sake. Whether he does or doesn't change for the better, it isn't Shota's responsibility anymore. He leaves, trying to leave Bakugo's memory behind with him. Midoriya's outside the room when Shota arrives 20 minutes before 9 a.m. Shota asked Nezu everyone knows the rat watches security camera footage for entertainment to alert him when Midoriya decides to show up for precisely this reason. You know, Shota says from behind the kid, making him jump a foot in the air. This isn't class. Being early won't benefit you in any way. Sensei. Midoriya yells, turning to face him fully. He looks tired, the circles around his eyes several shades darker than they were yesterday, and even then, they were noticeable. And that was before he even knew anything, as if his body was reacting to events his mind didn't know about yet. It's not time to go yet, is it? He asks nervously. Did you have something planned? When he arrived, Midoriya was frowning at the math exercises pinned to the wall. He didn't look like he was having too much fun with them. No? Then let's go. Reporters and civilians with their 5-minute carton signs are assembled outside. They're held in the air proudly, not one of them seeming to realize that their profound proclamations look like the scrawls of 5-year-olds. Police officers stand guard, keeping the mass of people several meters away from the gates. He grits his teeth around the words he's about to say upon seeing his student's pale, horrified face. Masses around the gate aren't rare, but Midoriya's staring at the posters the way kids stare at expulsion papers. They say things like, "We want heroes, not villains." #Justice for Izuku. Stop promoting child abuse. #Justice for Izuku. Heroes should help. #Justice for Izuku. Or, quirks are our quirks. #Justice for Izuku. His name is signed under everything, even if it has no relation to their simple rhetoric. Are those about me? He forgot how little Midoriya knows about his own defenders. Shota read the #Justice for Izuku enough times to have lost the ability to recall a time when he didn't know about it. Yes. Midoriya doesn't cease his open-mouthed staring. He doesn't think this is good for his student, and getting mobbed by the horde of idiots would be even worse, so they should get going before they're noticed. He hands the kid his own hoodie, because he's wearing his UA uniform, probably an attempt to dress for the occasion. What? He asks, confused, examining the piece of clothing in his hands carefully. Is this your dash? He starts, looking up at Shota. Did you just take this off? He yells, as if Shota was bone naked. He's glad the crowd is obscenely loud and that Midoriya's small and narrow enough to be covered by Shota from most angles. Put that on. You don't want to be recognized, he says, giving a subtle nod in the direction of the roaring civilians. Midoriya swallows his confusion and puts the hoodie on. It was already baggy on Shota, and it looks like a dress on Midoriya's shorter figure, but the hood covers his face, and the sleeves hang over his recognizable scars. They walk past the crowd through the police-guarded path without incident aside from the usual questions directed at him. Shota stops Midoriya from taking the hoodie off in the car, saying, "You might need it still." He turns out to be right. The court of the police station isn't without its yelling fanatics. Word must have gotten out that Bakugo was interrogated here. Shota takes the kid straight to the designated office, hoping to avoid further complications. "I think the videos have been tampered with," Midoriya says. This declaration is met with silence. Had Shota known the determination he saw in Midoriya's eyes alluded to this, he would have postponed the interrogation. "They haven't, Midoriya," Tsukachi says, the picture of calm. He's the only other person in the room with them. The choice was deliberate. They thought it would help the kid relax if he was talking to a familiar face. The office was chosen with a similar goal in mind. Similar to the private offices at UA, it has couches with fluffy pillows instead of chairs across from each other and big glass windows with blooming flower pots on the sills. There's a small camera hidden in the upper corner of the room to record the conversation, but it isn't there to intimidate criminals. I don't think it'd happen like this. I remember parts of it, but Kaken never went this far. This room by its very design is meant to comfort the ones occupying it, but it's no use when the first words out of his student's mouth are these. "I can assure you that the videos have been tested for all sorts of camouflage," Tsukachi says gently. "There were none." Midoriya's nose and brows scrunch up in confusion. But there are so many quirks. There was for sure one. There are surefire ways to test for quirk use. Shota's pretty sure this isn't the first time Midoriya hears about this. "But I think, my memories have been altered?" Shota freezes at Midoriya's hesitant words. Tsukachi tightens his grip on the clipboard in his hands. "Why do you think that?" "Well," Midoriya begins, clearly uncomfortable with their tense gazes focused on him. "I didn't, remember any of it. I do now. But it all kinda came back at once when I saw it." Shota isn't sure if he should relax or not. He settles on putting a hand on the kid's shoulder. Midoriya startles and whips his head around to look at him, but he doesn't shake it off. Tsukachi's next words draw his attention away from Shota again. "Midoriya, that sounds like it might be your reaction to a traumatic event." The detective's voice is just a bit strained. Midoriya's frown deepens. "We'll get you tested for it, but I don't think we'll find anything." Midoriya's shoulders slump in relief. "Thank you." Shota squeezes his student's shoulder. The answers Midoriya gives to Tsukachi's questions are concerning. Despite how many times he's told that he doesn't need to protect Bakugo, Midoriya keeps doing it. He plays down everything he did, only acknowledging that there was a bit of bullying but nothing worse than that. Shota's heart sinks as Midoriya keeps talking about how amazing Kaken is. He wants to smack himself. How did he not realize before how much of Midoriya's behavior was evidence of Bakugo's crimes? Of Yagi's ignorance? Of Shota's negligence? He can see Tsukachi's eyes darken along with the mood in the room. Midoriya can sense it too, of course. He's always been attuned to people's emotions, but he clenches his fists and squares his shoulders and keeps on trying to help a person that never helped him with anything. This is almost as bad as watching the videos. Because Tsukachi's eyes say it all, Midoriya believes every word he says. "Mr. Tsukachi?" Midoriya asks when the detective is about to wrap it up. "I have another thing that might help Bakugo's case." Both Shota and the detective are too used to these kinds of suggestions to react much. Outwardly, at least. "Yes. I think J. Justicer will tell you about this, but I don't think the injuries could really have been as bad as they look on the videos. They don't even have scars." That might have been valuable information if Midoriya's statements could be trusted. As it stands, if Midoriya didn't remember the incident until he watched the videos, how could he remember whether he was healed by a healing quirk or not? Sadly, Midoriya isn't a reliable source. This is reflected in Tsukachi's pitying eyes. "We'll look into this. Thank you for your time." He asks Shota to step outside for a moment. Shota complies after instructing Midoriya to stay put. Both of them sigh to release some of the tension once they're out of the kid's earshot. You didn't tell me about this, Shota. The detective says balefully. I didn't know, Shota says, slumping against the wall. Tsukachi sighs. This isn't useful to the investigation. Midoriya's lucky we have enough evidence without his statement. Shota snorts bitterly. I doubt he sees it that way. I've seen this behavior in other long-term abuse victims, especially children. Tsukachi says, leaning back against the wall beside Shota. Shota knows, Eri and Midoriya weren't the first times he experienced this, albeit never this intimately. It doesn't end well. I know. Take care of him, will you? I will. Tsukachi nods and leaves for his next job. Shota takes a few deep breaths before re-entering the room. Midoriya looks small, arms crossed, head hung low, shoulders hunched. He looks guilty. His expression does too when he looks up at Shota. You don't believe me, do you? There's a quiver in his voice. Shota sighs deeply and takes his seat next to Midoriya. He sinks into a softness that seems mocking, undeserved. He wishes sitting on the floor was better, but even the carpets are woolly and soft. Deep down, do you believe yourself? What? Midoriya sputters. Come on, kid, I've graded your essays. You aren't one to believe in far-fetched conspiracy theories. Midoriya tightens the grip on his arms, which makes the defensive gesture look self-soothing. I really don't have scars, he says, voice shaking. Shota stays quiet. Midoriya releases a watery breath. I'm sorry, sensei, I've caused so much trouble. How so? Midoriya looks at him incredulously, eyes shining. Well, all of these people on the streets, they're distressed. And they're making other people distressed. It looks like I gave dangerous ideologies a voice? And then Kaken and everyone else at school, they're worried, sad, and angry. And you're too. And the school's in so much trouble, his voice trails off. He looks up at Shota, half imploring, half scared, as if he thought Shota would change his mind about supporting him after his little speech. During the Shai Hasaikai raid, Shota starts. Midoriya's brows furrow. Eri almost went back to overhaul because she blamed herself. Midoriya opens his mouth to speak, but Shota plows on before he can. After a long time of being hurt, she believed the words of the villain. That's not the essay same. Midoriya whispers, startled that Shota brought it up in this context. Isn't it? You're acting similar to her. Midoriya shakes his head. You misunderstood something, sensei. I hurt all of you. At the raid, several heroes were injured. We even lost Night Eye, the kid flinches. The area sustained a lot of damage. Do you think that was Eri's fault? No. Shota nods. All of us were stressed and worried about her and we got hurt. Midoriya shakes his head, more at the point Shota's trying to make than what he's saying. And although she was at the center of it all, she wasn't to blame. Night Eye died trying to help her, but it wasn't her fault. We're all still trying to help her, and it's hypocritical of you not to allow us to do the same. You are one of the people trying to help her the most, even now that the mission is over. You're wrong, Midoriya shakes his head again. It's different. I'm not like Eri. He sounds pained. Then he adds, quietly, more to himself than to Shota. This feels wrong. Shota's planted the seeds, but it will take time for them to grow. They're both silent for a while, Shota glaring at the woolly carpet as if it personally offended him because it did, hoping that Midoriya is mulling over his words instead of continuing to beat himself up about things that are out of his control. But who is he kidding? He knows his student. He changes the topic, voice turning stern. Who showed you the videos? Midoriya pales. No one, he says, panicked. His eyes dart around the room as if they could find an explanation there, among the horridly bright flowers and paintings. Turns out I saved it? Shota raises a skeptical eyebrow. I have a program that saves everything my face is on? All Might showed me. Although Shota can imagine Yagi doing that, even if he has no idea how the man could ever review that much footage, he doesn't think Midoriya takes after him in this. Figured. I'll ask him then. No, that's not necessary, he's busy. He waves his hands, a Midoriya-esque gesture that looks ridiculous with Shota's oversized sleeves. They make his hands look like the paws of a clumsy dog. He has to lean back to avoid being hit by them. Sorry. He quickly rolls up the sleeves again. It's a lie, of course. The only thing Yagi's busy with at the moment is trying to get Shota to allow him to see Midoriya. But Shota doesn't think the overbearing presence of his idol is what Midoriya needs at the moment. He has a class full of those kinds of people already. It's okay, kid. As long as the person who showed you didn't do it maliciously, I won't punish them. He turns serious eyes on Midoriya. They didn't, did they? No. They even made me stop after the first video and they were really reluctant to show it in the first place. When Nezu told him most people in his class had watched the videos, Shota was furious and ready to expel all of them. But he has since had the chance to think it over and realize that this was Kamino all over again. He won't expel them for trying to help, for now. Even if their attempts to help could do more harm than good. And no one in the class ever hurt me, sensei. Although Midoriya isn't the most reliable source, Shota is inclined to believe him. He asked for footage of the class dynamic and Nezu sent several recordings over right away. Does he have the recordings titled, like blockbuster movies? Shota suppresses a shudder at the thought of a movie titled, Cozy Nights in the Office with Present Mic and Eraserhead. Watching them, he saw that Bakugo's behavior should have been a red flag from the very beginning. He insulted Midoriya every chance he got especially aggressive in training exercises, was inconsiderate of everything and everyone, was too focused on winning over saving. And Shota knew all of this, but now instead of the perfectionistic, self-centered, hard-working kid he saw, he sees a budding villain that shoots at people with fire and doesn't stop when they're crying for help. But it was stupid to think he doesn't know the rest of the students in his class. He'll keep an eye on them, but he doesn't think there's a laughing, cruel bully hiding behind their concerned, shocked faces. I know. Despite knowing how important and serious this is, Izuku can't suppress the thrill of excitement he feels when Justicer enters the examination room. He introduces himself by his civilian name, Akira Tanaka, with a warm handshake and a smile. He doesn't take off his full hero costume, he only removes his metal helmet and leaves it on the desk. He looks out of place in a room that, for all intents and purposes, looks like a regular doctor's office. Izuku bites his lip, trying to keep a growing stream of questions in. Well, we should get right to it, shouldn't we? Justicer says, waiting for both Aizawa and Izuku's nods of confirmation before telling Izuku to sit on the examination table. Izuku complies. Do you have the paperwork? He asks, turning to Aizawa. Aizawa hands him an official-looking black folder. Justicer schemes the sheets inside, but Izuku can't see much of them, even with his neck craned. He signs them and gives the folder back to Aizawa. He must see Izuku's look of confusion because he explains not a moment later, just boring paperwork. Enjoy school while it lasts, paperwork is a beach. Izuku lets out a startled laugh at the swear. He's never heard Justicer curse before. Only one paragraph was truly important in there. And those are the police-approved timeframes I have to check out. You see my... Izuku's eyes widen in realization. Your Quirk. It needs a time frame to work. You can't print out the entire life of someone. Izuku flushes and ducks his head. Sorry for interrupting. I just think you're a great hero. Really? I'm happy to have you as a fan. Most of my fans are older. Izuku thinks of Monoma and the posters on his walls. Could I get an A autograph? He squeaks, cringing at his high-pitched voice. Justicer blinks a few times, before leaning forward and printing an autograph with his Quirk. He hands it to Izuku. Here you are. Izuku stares at it in amazement. It looks handwritten. Can his Quirk do that? Can it print anything? That's so versatile. Thank you. He carefully places the piece of paper down next to him. Justicer chuckles. You're welcome. It's a reward for your good taste. He winks at Izuku. Aizawa clears his throat. We should get started. I'm sure you guys have a lot to do. He looks Izuku in the eyes. Don't panic if you feel a bit cold. That happens to some people. He takes a few steps back and positions himself in front of the paper tray on the desk. He bows slightly and the sheets fall into the tray smoothly, without wrinkling at all. Izuku had barely caught a subtle yellow glow in Justicer's pink eyes before the first paper came out of his back. It's quick and quiet and Izuku barely feels cold at all. That might be because of Aizawa's hoodie, though. It's fluffy and warm, so much so that Izuku would love to just snuggle into it. But that'd be creepy. Done. Justicer smiles, not looking exhausted at all. Izuku blinks. That was fast, even faster than he expected. The speed doesn't seem to slow down with quantity. The quality of the printings was the same for each piece of paper that fell out of his back from what Izuku could see. Does that mean it isn't the ink and paper that gets in the way of printing hundreds of pages but rather the information gleaning ability of the quirk? All pages were printed at the same pace. Does that mean the specific time frame doesn't make a difference? If that's the case, then the information gleaning function itself can't be the reason why the quirk has a limit, unless it's only exhausted by the paperic lengths it's used for, and not by the age of the information it's looking for. But it'd make sense for older injuries to take longer to register. And why didn't the pace change? Maybe it wasn't long enough yet, maybe it changed, imperceptible to the human eye. Midoriya, Aizawa's voice says quietly from right beside him. Izuku jerks back, heart hammering in his chest. When did he get here? You're mumbling. I'm sorry. It's all right. Aizawa says dryly, he hasn't noticed. Izuku looks up at Justicer. He is still reading the papers, frown on his face, lips moving rapidly and voicelessly. Izuku bites back an exited squeal. Aizawa sighs, sitting down on the examination table next to Izuku. Justicer places the stack of papers back on the desk. Did he read all of them already? Good. He says, not looking like things are good at all. His expression is somber. Izuku almost feels betrayed by it, but he barely knows the man, so he really has no claim on those feelings. Now it's time for the physical examination. I need to take a look at a few things. Izuku swallows but complies when he's asked to take off everything but his underwear. He feels cold without Aizawa's sweater. Midoriya? Justicer asks after gently inspecting the skin on his upper body with a device Izuku has never seen before. He warned him every time before the cold metal tapped his skin and Izuku's grateful, but he also feels a bit childish for it. How did you get treated for your injuries? By recovery girl. He means the ones you got from Bakugo. Aizawa interjects. Oh. Of course. Izuku wants to slap himself. I didn't. You didn't? Justicer asks as if the words felt foreign in his mouth. I mean, I took care of them myself. He staples his fingers nervously at their silence. Aizawa stares at him, unblinking, so long that Izuku's sure he's going to use his quirk any second now. He doesn't, but Izuku feels compelled to explain anyway. It's like I said, the injuries weren't as bad as they're made out to look on the video. You can. Justicer puts a hand on his scarred shoulder, stopping him in his rambling. His brown eyes shine with misdirected kindness when he says, you sustained several severe injuries. Someone with a very strong healing quirk must have helped you, even if it wasn't in your medical record. How do they even know when these things happened? Did Kaken remember? Did anyone else remember? No, they must have somehow found the original videos. Izuku shakes his head. He has some foggy memories. Aizawa cuts him off and Izuku hates Justicer's pitying look. Not any anymore. After watching the first video I remember what I did after. You can ask my mom. She saw me right after. If she still remembers. And the injuries healed quickly. By the next morning, they looked a lot better. He remembers crying in relief when he stood in front of the mirror and saw that despite how much it still hurt, the injuries looked half-healed already. He was glad he wouldn't have to work as hard as he expected to hide them from his mom. He remembers. Justicer frowns. If that's the case, do you have a healing quirk? What? Izuku sputters. Perhaps one that your body applies instinctually without you even knowing. No. I think he would have used it one of the many times I've seen him get injured. Aizawa says dryly, sending him a reproachful look. Although it's lacking its usual heat behind it, it helps Izuku calm down a bit. Eraserhead. Do you mind using your quirk on him? Aizawa's eyes flash red not a moment later. Izuku can't feel anything change, but both men tense. Izuku's jaw drops when he follows their gazes down to his upper body. It's covered in scars, large, ugly, different shades of red, pink and blue kind of scars. He lifts a hand to touch them, and then they're gone. Eraserhead, I think you need to keep using your quirk for us. He does, and Justicer continues with his examination. He explains something about checking how old the scars are for further application of his quirk. Izuku would be impressed at his expertise if he wasn't still reeling from seeing his own flesh disappear in the blink of an eye, literally. Aizawa keeps staring at him, and of course he has to, but it doesn't help soothe his growing discomfort at the situation. He touches the uneven skin to see if the scars are really there. They are, even if they weren't a second ago, they feel too smooth and too rough at the same time. The scars aren't even what has him the most rattled. They're horrible, and his friends would gasp at hearing him say that, but they're not as shocking as what Aizawa just did. He just is still erasing his quirk. His quirk. A quirk he spent so long trying to get. He tried everything. It seems useless for hero work, but it's undoubtedly there. But it can't be. It doesn't feel real. Justicer prints out a few more reports, schemes them and adds them to the folder. He whispers something to Aizawa, something that elicits a grim nod and leaves with a loud, "Good luck on your case." Izuku can't do anything other than nod numbly, still staring and poking at the flesh on his chest. All trace of the scars is gone. Aizawa's voice draws him out of his stupor. "You can put your clothes on now." "All right." He scrambles to get dressed. Aizawa tells him they'll see a quirk specialist about this. "If you ever consciously use it to hide injuries from me, you're on house arrest for a week." He grumbles on their way out of the station, "I won't have you use this to make my job as a teacher, which is already hard enough, mind you, even harder, problem child." "Yes, sir." Izuku agrees, and he isn't sure if he wants to be jumping in excitement or screaming in frustration. Why didn't he realize this before? He could have worked on it. It could have many uses only found out through experimentation. Could he change other parts of his appearance? Could he use it on other people? Could he make himself taller? Why did it only hide Kaken's? Kaken. Izuku's heart sinks. He almost forgot about him. In the car, once they're sitting down, alone in the back, Izuku asks Aizawa about it. "Sensei?" Aizawa grunts. Is there anything I can do to help Kaken?" Aizawa has that same pained expression on his face he always gets when Izuku mentions his classmate. Izuku looks out the window to not have to look at it, focusing on the crowded streets instead. People are walking, talking, and eating as if today was a normal day. And for them it is. Izuku knows that, but it's hard to reconcile the outward appearance of normalcy with the dawning realization that everything is changing. And losing Kaken is at the center of that change. Kaken, a person that's always been around, won't be coming back. Because of him. Kaken hurt him, badly, Justicer has proof of it, but Izuku thinks it's easier to forget than remember. It's easier to pretend it never happened. Is it even pretending if he's so good at it that he believes it? Than to think about what it means that it did? Or is he just lying to himself? Maybe Izuku's spent too much time forgetting to fit into a world where it's remembered. It takes a few moments for Aizawa to answer, "Get better." Izuku's brows furrow as he turns back around. "What do you mean?" Aizawa sighs. "Stop trying to help him. Let yourself be helped. And stop blaming yourself for his actions. He needs to face consequences to learn." Kaken burnt him. Izuku has a lot more scars than he thought he did. He can't see them at the moment, but he knows they are there. He knows now. Maybe Kaken needs to be punished to learn, but he can't imagine all those posters outside, spewing hatred at Kaken, are fair. And Kaken could still be an amazing hero. Wasn't he getting better? And now he can't be. He lost that chance. Izuku took that away from him. Izuku's lip wobbles and his eyes begin to cloud with tears. He ducks his head to hide it, but he probably doesn't do a good job at it, because Aizawa's hand is on his shoulder not a moment later. "If Eri asked you how she could help overhaul, what would you tell her?" "It's not the same." Izuku says, voice choked. Aizawa likes to talk about that for some reason. Not exactly, but there are enough similarities to compare the two situations. It'd be wrong if Eri felt like she owed Overhaul anything, but it'd also be wrong not to try to help Kaken. He doesn't think Kaken would ever hurt anyone else like that again, but Overhaul is a repeat offender. And even if he wasn't, Eri deserves better. And you don't? A treacherous voice whispers in the back of his mind. Maybe I don't, or rather he thinks that, if getting his own justice hurts everyone else, it isn't worth it. I'm sorry. Aizawa sighs, but he doesn't stop rubbing circles on his back. He's grateful for the wall between them and the police officer driving them, because crying in front of a stranger would be even worse than crying in front of just Aizawa, and he can't deny that he's full-on crying now, sobbing and hiccuping and everything. You're not getting the point, are you? Aizawa mutters, more to himself than to Izuku. Then he goes on more loudly, Eri sees a therapist. She's helped her. I'll set up an appointment for you. That's not necessary. Aizawa's stern look shuts him up. It's not optional. Okay, he says, because what else can he say? And this feels uncomfortable, but it isn't the end of the world. The therapist will realize after the first session that her time is best spent elsewhere, and it'll be over. As a hero, you need to value your own well-being if you want to last longer than a few years at most. I never said. Aizawa shuts him up with a look that makes Izuku look away again. Aizawa doesn't stop rubbing his shoulder awkwardly, remaining a soothing presence by his side until the car stops, and they have to walk past the roaring reminders of reality. He's glad he can hide beneath Aizawa's hoodie, though, it makes him feel warm even out in the cool air. It's so cold that the warm weather from a few days ago feels like a dream. At least the weather's synchronized with the changes around him. Aizawa forbids him from going to class today. He seems suspicious of Izuku's easy compliance. Izuku wonders if his teacher thought he'd fight to join his classmates for the last 20 minutes left of the school day. He's not that much of a teacher's pet, is he? Well, today he isn't, anyway. He wants to give Monoma the autograph as quickly as possible before it gets wrinkled, which is why he's waiting in front of 1B's dorm building. It felt like intruding to enter, and he still thinks that, even if standing outside draws way too much attention. Each member of Class B that passes him stops to say hi or ask if they can help. He's being treated like a traumatized victim they're trying to rescue from a burning building, half urgent, half pitying in their offers to help. He doesn't like it, but they're virtual strangers, so he can't exactly fault them for it. And fiddling with the sleeves of Aizawa's hoodie helps keep him grounded. He still can't believe his teacher didn't want it back. Izuku was right in his guess that 1B spends their lunch break in the dorms on Fridays. He never sees them in the cafeteria, but there are many places to eat homemade meals at UA. They all tell him Monoma will arrive soon, but he's one of the last ones that does. You can start without me. The two classmates accompanying him hesitate. Monoma rolls his eyes. I won't beat him up in front of the cameras. That's what training exercises are for. The two guys Izuku recognizes them from the sports festival but doesn't remember their names look at Izuku questioningly. Izuku gives them a thumbs up and the brightest smile he can muster, but their concern feels like a slap in the face. They enter the dorms without making a fuss, thankfully, and leave an awkward silence behind. Training exercises? Izuku asks just to break it. Monoma sighs gravely and starts walking along the path away from the buildings. And the cameras, Izuku notes. He wonders if he does this to beat him up somewhere unsupervised or just to avoid getting in trouble about the videos. Izuku follows him, despite his worries. Your class really doesn't do their research. The third years told us joint training exercises are part of the curriculum. Oh, that actually makes sense. It's calm under the trees of the forest, which shield them well from any staring people. When the chirping birds get louder, a clear sign they're quite a bit away from the rest of the student body. Monoma speaks up, I won't show you the rest of the videos. Izuku blinks, surprised by the topic. Did he really only watch that video yesterday? That's fine. I wouldn't ask that of you. After a moment of thought, he adds, a note of panic in his voice, but maybe it'd be best if you put them on my laptop? Because Aizawa knows I watched them, so I told him I have a software that downloads anything with my face on it. Monoma stares at him for a moment, uncomprehending. You did what? Yeah. I said I got it from All Might. To his horror, Monoma bursts out laughing. It's the genuine kind, like last time, but it's scary nonetheless. You couldn't think of anything else? He asks, dramatically wiping invisible tears from his eyes. No, he blushes. Come to think of it, he could have been more creative. I'm really sorry I told him. If he didn't question you further after that, I doubt he'll follow up on it. Monoma stops walking and leans against the trunk of a tall maple tree. Izuku remains standing awkwardly in the middle of the path. He takes a breath. Better get right to it. You're a fan of Justicer, right? Monoma blinks, thrown off by the change in topic, or the fact that Izuku knows that about him when they've barely had one conversation. It's a bit creepy, admittedly. He's all right. Do you want his autograph? Huh. Izuku takes the autograph out of the green folder in his backpack and hands it to Monoma. He examines the paper carefully. Did he do this with his quirk? Monoma asks, sounding breathless. Yeah. He didn't know his printings were recognizable. Monoma must really be a fan. He doesn't do that often. How did you get him to do that? He's staring at the piece of paper in awe, turning it this way and that in the light shining through the space between the trees. Izuku shrugs. I asked. You're unbelievable. Monoma shakes his head. You have everyone wrapped around your finger, don't you? What makes you say that? Izuku isn't sure whether that's an insult or not, but that seems to be an ongoing thing with Monoma. Yesterday, your classmates were being so caring that it was sickening to watch. That makes him feel a warmth in his chest. They kept talking about what they should do to help you, when they weren't too emotional to say anything, of course. Izuku feels a twinge of guilt at avoiding them yesterday. They clearly all care about you in a very cheesy way. I originally thought they were bullies themselves, which was the reason why I wanted to show them how bad bullying can get. But he takes a deep breath as if it pained him greatly to say what he's about to say. Your class is all right. Izuku snorts at his face of disgust. And point is, you're good at getting people to like you. Do you have another quirk? He eyes Izuku suspiciously, and this time it's Izuku's turn to burst out laughing. Funny you mention that. He didn't think Monoma would be the first person he told about his quirk, but Izuku trusts him. He doesn't know him well, but he knows that he's all right behind his defensive comments. He grumbles about Izuku being lucky, having a flashy quirk and a useful one. These remarks don't seem to be mean-spirited, though, and Izuku's happy about that. Don't you have some kind of Class B gathering? Izuku asks, sending a glancing in the direction of the dorm buildings behind the trees. You have them every Friday, right? You really are perceptive. I shouldn't be surprised anymore. He starts walking again, Izuku on his heels, Justicer's autograph in his hands. He's gentle and careful as he carries the piece of paper. You might be the only one in Class A with some common sense. Didn't you just say they were all right? Monoma looks at him as if that was a stupid question. That doesn't mean they're smart. They take a few steps in silence before Monoma stops and says, You know you don't have to walk behind me, right? You can walk right beside me. There's enough space for both of us. Izuku doesn't know why his throat feels so tight. It isn't like Monoma performed a great gesture of kindness, and he isn't the first one to say this to him. It still touches him in a way he can't explain. He wipes at his eyes and catches up with his yearmate? Person who will try to beat him up in future training exercises? Friend? He doesn't know, but it feels nice. The next time he's in Monoma's room, the autograph is hanging among the posters and photos on the wall. Monoma's words reminded Izuku how much his classmates care about him. With that in mind, he decides to join them for dinner. Class B prepares lunch together as a class on Fridays. Class A does the same for dinner. Izuku's glad he isn't one of the people assigned to do it today. He doesn't think his heart could handle that with how much it's beating at the mere thought of facing his classmates. But he does plan on eating with everyone and apologize, despite the twisting knots in his stomach. He doesn't expect them to beat him to it. I'm sorry, Midoriya, we should have noticed sooner. Several people bow and apologize to him, even after he tells them empathically how much they don't need to do that. He should be the one doing that, but whenever he tries, his classmates get stern, determined looks on their faces and lecture him on why he doesn't have to. It's ridiculous, but he appreciates their dedication. They're clearly still affected by everything that happened, although they're trying not to show it, but Izuku can see that none of them blame him for it. He'd be stupid not to, considering that they spelled out to him repeatedly that he shouldn't take responsibility for things that he can't control and aren't his fault in any way whatsoever. Todoroki and Ida are comforting presences sitting on either side of him. Todoroki stares at his food intently, looking very thoughtful about something. Uraraka, Tsuyu, and Aoyama, the newest member of their group, are sitting across the table, all of them paying more attention to Izuku than usual. It's uncomfortable at times, sure, but Izuku remembers the All Might figurine in his room. Many people collect these kinds of figurines, and despite their lack of use, they are treated with care. He remembers Monoma and the way his eyes shone with awe as he examined Justicer's autograph. Even a piece of paper can mean a lot, not because of the amount of money you can sell it for, but because of the personal connection you have to it. Maybe that's how his classmates feel. For whatever reason, he's their All Might glass figurine and their Justicer autograph, and he can understand why they're worried about something so precious. And he's okay with that. At some point they'll realize that the figurine won't just fall and break on its own. Izuku nods at nothing in particular and takes another helping of katsudon. He meets Uraraka's eyes while doing so. They look amused. "You okay?" Uraraka asks with raised eyebrows. Her playful expression reminds him of yesterday morning. Was that really only yesterday? When they stopped in the wrong hallway. "Don't tell me," he looks around at the fond faces of his friends. "Don't tell me I said that out loud?" Their lack of a response is answer enough. "Oh God." Izuku can feel his cheeks flush. "We didn't hear much," Todoroki says. And Izuku is really glad his muttering is quiet and incomprehensible, unless he's very excited or otherwise agitated. He wishes he had trained it to be non-existent, though. "Just something about your dad's glass figurine." Izuku's jaw drops. "To Todoroki." "His dad?" Ida asks, frowning in a way that would normally suggest a particularly hard ethics problem. "But wasn't he talking about all?" "What makes you even say that, Todoroki?" Izuku interrupts Ida cheerfully. "I thought you forgot about that?" "Well, Bakugo clearly saw you as a threat, even as children, while being terribly arrogant. It makes sense that he'd see the #1 hero's child as a threat to his future career." Izuku slaps a hand to his forehead while Uraraka and Tsuyu laugh. Ida looks between all of them, confused. Todoroki looks dead serious about the newest evidence to support his theory, and Aoyama looks off to the side, posing. Yes, Izuku thinks, feeling the warmth spread further in his chest, they'll all be alright.